Hello, fellow Star Wars fans. We're back at it yet again with another Mandalorian discussion, this time on Season 2 in its entirety. We are going full-blown spoilers, as we always do every week on the channel here. And I'm joined by Ben. We will be joined by Milton, as we always are, a little bit later on in the show. He's stuck in traffic jam right now. But this is going to be more of a loose discussion for you guys. Whoever joins in the chat, feel free to send in your comments, what you liked about the episodes, what you didn't like about the episodes of Season 2, and we're going to just kind of go through in different topics. But first, before we get into our actual discussion of the episode, I do want to talk about that Mandalorian Star Wars The Gallery Season 2. It's like the longest, weirdest name for these documentaries. But this was a little bit different format from the first season. The first season, we really took a deep dive into each things like the legacy, like the sound, like the directors, each episode. Now, Season 2, it's more of a special. They went through each episode in chronological order and talked about the certain guest appearances in there and different things like that. So what'd you think overall? Did you watch the documentary that came out on Christmas Day then?
Yep. Oh yeah, I watched it Christmas Day night. I thought it was really good. I definitely think the name is really bad. I don't know. I think they need to change the name. The gallery, it just I don't know, it's kind of eye rolling. I think it's kind of a bad name. But as for the documentary itself, I do wish it was I do wish it was 8 parts because I thought last year the behind the scenes documentary was so good and it was so much fun. Like, sure, it isn't as exciting as new Mando every week, but still, it extended our Star Wars content for 2 more months. So I wish it would have been 8 parts. Um, but the parts I really, really liked about it, I tweeted about it when I after I got done watching it. I really loved the parts with Robert Rodriguez. I thought he really brought his personality, like his personality behind the scenes really showed, especially when he was like playing the guitar with Grogu and everything. I thought that was really cute. And then I like that he let Tamara Morrison incorporate like the Maori culture, like the whole fighting style and all that. I thought that was really, really cool. Him letting Tamara, incorporate that into the Boba Fett character. And then just as a whole, seeing Jon Favreau interact behind the scenes more and more, to me anyways, it feels like he's getting groomed to be a higher up executive, like controlling a lot of the creative things behind the scenes at Lucasfilm, because you see him on set, you see him in the meetings, you see him getting interviewed in that, and he just feels like he's just on another level, like not like I don't want to say like a George Lucas level, but it feels like he's in that type of a thing where he's really like getting involved. All the directors talk so highly about John, and I think he's getting groomed for a higher up role. And then the other big takeaways from this was, I think Dave Filoni is such a good, how would I say it, like almost like a torch passer between the Lucas era to this era of Star Wars, just because he really appreciates the history. I love his remarks in the documentary, like saying how much, like with the Ahsoka episode. I love Filoni talking about they wanted to nail the character because they really, respect the fans and want to pay their respects to the fans who stuck with his character, all through all the ups and downs. And she definitely had a lot of downs initially. But I thought that was really nice with Filoni. And then my other final like really big takeaway was, I think Rick Famuyiwa, who directed the Bill Burr episode,
Episode 7.
Episode 7. I think he needs a Star Wars series or a movie. Like, sure, there's nothing against like Bryce Dallas Howard, or like Dave Filoni or anybody, but I feel like Rick really, I think he really knows Star Wars, and I feel like
he knows it.
I feel like he really comes at it from a different angle than everybody else, because a lot of the so with John and Dave and the other directors, I feel like their episodes can almost sometimes become a little bit too nostalgia based. That is one little critique of this whole series as a whole. Like I feel like sometimes with John and Dave's episodes, they can maybe become a little bit too nostalgia. Like, and nostalgia isn't a bad thing, but I feel like the way Rick Famuyiwa does it, he makes really good episodes, and there's not a ton of nostalgia stuff in them. So I think it's I feel like he, and just the way he talks about Star Wars, I've seen him in interviews and everything, and I really think he needs his own series just as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
those are just a few of my like initial like takeaways from that documentary.
Yeah, great thoughts. Great thoughts. I do want to break off and talk about Rick Famuyiwa because, as you said, like he's the only person in this season. I'll say this: he's the only person this season I believe that wrote their own episode. He wrote and directed his own episode. A lot of these all these directors were basically working off a script that John gave them. Whereas they believed so much in Rick, because remember, Rick directed 2 episodes in season 1. He did the second episode, which introduced like the Force element into this series, which was huge. He did an awesome job with that whole Mudhorn segment. And he also did the episode 6, which brought in Bill Burr, and it gave a different kind of stylistic approach to Star Wars in this prison heist scene sequence. So then we see him in this episode, and they just basically gave him the keys and said, make your own episode. And he did something very good in that episode, in which really peeled off some of the layers of Pedro Pascal's the Mandalorian, taking off his helmet, literally peeling back the layers, and then also adding in like awesome action sequences. I think like we're gonna talk about our favorite sequences, so I don't want to really spoil my. But I will say that
Yep.
one is up there for me. Is that whole sequence with the truck, and he has these awesome sequences in the first episode, the first season, with the whole sandcrawler, with of course the Mudhorn, with the sequences with the Trandoshans right in the beginning of that episode. He's killer when it comes to it, and I totally agree. Like, give this guy something. I think at
Well,
least we'll maybe see him transfer to like maybe directing an episode of Rangers of the New Republic. I could see that at the very least.
yep. Well, actually, I mean, heck, you can go back on my Twitter from a year ago, even when after his Jawa episode, I said he needed a Star Wars show or needed something, needed more of a project in Star Wars, just because I feel like even if you just look at the Jawa episode as a standalone, it feels almost like a standalone movie.
Mm-hmm.
It has all the little things you want in Star Wars. It has a story, it has action, it has some cheesy
Mm-hmm.
comedy. Star Wars has that. Like we all want Star Wars to be this serious thing, but there's definitely cheesiness here and there in Star
Oh
Wars.
yeah.
But I love it. Um, I mean, gosh, we have the Jawas, defeating Mando initially, and then Rick Famuyiwa, he talked about like how there was definitely like paying homage to like Indiana Jones
I
for
was
that,
about to say.
for
Mm-hmm.
for the Last Crusade, like just like those type of little things, plus the way they included the Force in that episode. I just from that point on, I was sold on him. I was like, this guy needs to have a Star Wars project.
For sure, for sure. I do want to shout out the people in the chat. We got Brian VRM. He's saying, "Hey everyone, hey, how's it going, Brian?" We also have Scrambled Goose, who's often in our chat. Thanks for joining Scrambled Goose. And like I said, everybody that joins in, feel free to send in your thoughts for all of season 2, spoilers and everything else. Everybody knows not to jump into these live chats if they haven't seen the episodes. I give them fair warning. So go ahead, have fun in the chat. But and just a couple other things I would, because I know this is a discussion of season 2. I don't want to spend too long on this,
Yep.
but it's worth talking about because there's some really cool things in here. What I will say, because I mean it connects to season 2 obviously, and this is discussion that doesn't really need to be said. But anyway, I like how often I seen Pedro Pascal wearing the Mandalorian armor, and there's
Yep.
often times where he was in the episodes that didn't have him even taken him off. So that just goes to show like Pedro Pascal is going above and beyond. Like he doesn't really have to put on that armor, but he wants to embody that character, whether or not he's actually going to have to re-record his VO or anything else. So I thought that was pretty cool because you hear things on the internet as you often do, and it's like, oh, he's never in the armor, and he's getting mad that he's not doing much, but that's all been falsified anyway. But it's just cool to see him like off the stage, in the episode. He was like I seen a really cool image of him in episode 4, which was called The Siege. And he was in the
Yep.
classroom with all the students and he was just like hanging out with his helmet off and the armor. And it was just a really funny, candid pic of him. I got to talk about the stuff with Robert Rodriguez because that excited me probably the most out of anything else. This guy absolutely gets it. Robert Rodriguez, man. The way he talked, it was like, it was like just like candy to me because I was like, this guy is literally music to my ears. That's the phrase I'm looking for because he was saying everything I would have said if I was in his position. Like Boba Fett, the man of mystery. This guy deserves something that we hadn't seen before. Like it's got to live up to the hype. It's got to live up to the legends of all his characters. And I love how he said, I wanted to make this episode as if it was the first and last time we would ever see Boba Fett. So he totally went all out with that sequence, and just his working relationship with Tim Morrison, just the fact that like they're both jamming out on guitars, and that one awesome clip of him just like
Yep.
in backstage with the guitar, just like singing about the Mandalorian, and the Robert Rodriguez is just like chiming in next to him. And there's another thing on Twitter that was floating around like of him just playing guitar and Grogu's just like bobbing his head. And just the fact that Robert Rodriguez got his two sons to basically reenact the animatics that they normally do, like with 3D renderings in a computer. They just did it in the backyard with freaking action figures. It's like, that's brilliant. Because if I was in their position, like I would be doing the same thing. There would probably be a whole room just dedicated to action figures. And it's like, all right, guys, just act out a scene. Use these stormtroopers, use these bounty hunters, and have a fun time and put on the video cameras and people can see what the heck you're doing with and you're just essentially playing with action figures, which is it seems childish, but when it comes to Star Wars, it doesn't matter because that gets the job done. Um, but all in all, just wrapping up this quick discussion on the gallery, the Mandalorian season 2. I will say I didn't even expect this to even come out. Like I wasn't against the idea of having another one of these, but I just said like they were so thorough with the idea of what they did for season 1. Literally, like it was like a master class in how to make a film. Essentially, they went over every single thing pretty much. Like if you were a college student, I'm pretty sure you could get a lot of information if you're a film student out of just watching this 8-part documentary. So I thought they did such a good job that they left no stone unturned essentially. But I do like how they came with this approach where it's like, okay, you guys know how this thing is made generally. We're going to just show you everything that went into season 2, what changed, the new directors. Peyton Reed was on there. I liked how his approach was and how they built Jabba's palace from the ground up. That wasn't even in the volume. That was pure Jabba's palace. And that was just awesome. I love how they included Bib Fortuna's staff, like from a freaking action figure, like that never got seen on screen. Stuff like that attention to detail. How everybody, and they hit this home at the end, how everybody on that set loves Star Wars. Everybody was putting 110%, no matter if they were the person, that was catering this thing, if they were a person that was doing the lighting, if they were the person that was just worrying about the schedule for where people were, or all the way up to obviously Jon Favreau. Like everybody wanted this thing to be as good as it possibly could be. And that to me is really powerful because I'm sure there's a lot of projects that people do out there that they're just not really in to do it for the fun. They're more in to get the paycheck. They're just cashing the paycheck every week. That's it. But you could tell everybody on those sets, they were giving their A game. And it's just
Oh,
awesome to see.
oh yeah, they definitely were. And I can echo all your sentiments. I loved seeing how passionate all of them were about working on Star Wars. Like you said, Robert Rodriguez, the entire time he was talking, I was smiling. I was like, this guy, like, we're in good hands for the Boba Fett show.
Mm-hmm.
I was just like, man, this guy knows it. And especially like you pointed out, I loved that he talked about how, when you're reintroducing a legend, you have to really reintroduce them, go swinging for the home run. Like, and I love how he described Mando and Boba Fett. He's
Mm-hmm.
like, Din's a warrior,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
he wanted to make Boba Fett a barbarian. And that was awesome. I thought that was a really, really good point you made. And then just even, like I opened on, Jon Favreau, just the details he thinks about, like the episode Bryce Dallas Howard did with
Hmm.
Bo-Katan, episode 3. She was talking about how initially they were going to do for the boat shots.
Oh yeah.
She was thinking about doing a crane shot, and then John was like, no, because if we were actually shooting this on location, we wouldn't be doing a crane shot for this. It would be on the
Uh
water with
yeah.
another boat. So like just little details like that John's pointing out, like to me that's just more and more signaling like we're eventually going to see him as a higher up position at Lucasfilm.
Yeah, quickly going off of that, because I've been hearing that conversation a lot. Now,
Yep.
you can compare that to somebody like Kevin Feige. Now, Kevin Feige was a producer at Marvel Studios, right? So I don't know if he wrote anything, but he was just like that kind of guy that kind of like made sure everything was going smooth. I don't know if he didn't direct anything, he didn't write anything. He was just the guy that was leading the ship, so to speak. So then
Yeah.
he got promoted to president. And when you're president, you have to deal with a lot of financial stuff too. So I don't know if somebody like Jon Favreau would want to be a president of Lucasfilm, only because then you have to do other things besides creative work too. So I know when people talk about that, I'm like, I don't know. I don't know Jon Favreau personally. Maybe he wants to be in control. Maybe he just likes to have his own little universe. Essentially, is what he's
Yep.
making with Star Wars with the four spin-off shows. And jumping, oh, yeah, you got a point. Yeah, you go first because I
Oh,
was gonna
oh
jump
yeah. I was gonna
transition.
say one thing real quick too.
Yep.
I just really think though that so when it comes to like him and the entire cast and crew, it was just really cool. I think one of the biggest parts that I really really liked too throughout it was, you know, people talking about like George and like George's
Yeah.
legacy and like all impact. Just the different people talking about that. Like I thought that was uh really cool just because you know ever since George bought or sold Star Wars, we haven't really seen too much of him lately. So
No.
just to hear people talking just to hear some of the people inside talking about him really, to me as a fan anyway, means a lot just because him and Star Wars have been kind of separate basically the
Mm-hmm.
past 5 or 6, 7 years. So like it's really nice seeing people on the inside talk about George,
Yeah.
the way they were and everything. And for a half second there, I was like, man, when they were showing the Ahsoka episodes, I was thinking, I was like, are we gonna get like a little George Lucas cameo in this?
Oh
But
yeah. Yeah. I do.
that's honestly what I was thinking because there was the talk out there that George apparently saw Rosario in
Mm-hmm.
costume and full makeup, and that would have been just so cool to see that. But then again, I'm sure they probably,
Wait.
if
You
he
didn't.
was
That
there,
was
I'm
it.
sure they didn't want him.
That was in the
Pardon me.
episode. That was in this documentary. You didn't see that part?
Yeah, well, no, I saw that, but I was meaning
Oh,
more
okay.
along the lines of like, like how they cut to like Dave Filoni getting interviewed and
Yeah.
talking.
Oh
Like I
yeah.
was
Yeah.
meaning more
Yeah.
like that. Yeah,
Oh,
I,
okay.
I, I, I was thinking, I was like, please, just give us like 30 seconds of George Lucas talking.
Oh
Like
yeah.
I
Yeah.
wish, I was wanting more of something. I was really hoping we would have got something like that. But I mean, still just seeing him a little bit is nice. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just nice seeing them paying more homage and kind of including him.
Yeah. There was some moments that like I was getting kind of the feels because honestly, like seeing Ahsoka with George and they were both laughing.
Yep.
It was like a split second, like you blink and you miss it moment in the beginning of the documentary. But I was like, oh my gosh, like he's accepting Rosario Dawson as the live action Ahsoka, which he conceived this character from like probably 15 years ago. For him to actually see this character come to life and to see him holding Grogu like a baby,
Yep.
like oh my gosh, that was just fantastic. Um, and just seeing Dave Filoni talk to Rosario Dawson, seeing that those exchanges, seeing his exchange with Katie Sackhoff and how he worked with her as a voice artist, right, for years, and seeing how he said, oh, one day, he just set aside like, oh, one day, you'll be in live action, like thinking that he was like 10 years away from doing that. Like that was just so cool how it came full circle. And it's just those little moments throughout this documentary really kind of touched me. It just shows like how much these characters are important to us and everybody that's involved with these characters. They're sacred characters to us, and they feel almost like our family, and are getting reintroduced to like these other creators, which is just, it's like bizarre, but it's something else. um and finishing up this topic, I know I've been saying that, but it keeps going on because it was that good. I really enjoyed it. I keep thinking of more things as I'm wrapping it up. But they did purposely leave out the whole Luke Skywalker thing at the end. I was so looking forward to it, but it makes sense why they don't have anything in there, because I heard like they have third party people working on this documentary. So the last thing I wanted to do is like have somebody that's not exactly affiliated with like Disney, I guess, to like just leak it out, and then we would know that Luke was going to be in there, because that's one of the hidden gems in all of season 2. Is it was unfortunate that Ahsoka got leaked, that Boba Fett got leaked, that Cobb Vanth got leaked, that Bo-Katan got leaked, but nobody knew about Luke. And that was arguably the biggest surprise. Easily. Well, no, not even arguably. That was easy the biggest reveal in the show. I'm so happy that did not get revealed for anybody. But yeah, there you have it. That was season 2, the documentary. I was talking about spinoffs, and we didn't know entirely what the heck the deal was with the Book of Boba Fett, but I do want to just come out for everybody that's in the chat and everybody watching after the fact that the Book of Boba Fett is confirmed to be a series, not just a limited series, not just what they say with the Obi-Wan series. Now it's a special event series, not even a mini series. This is going to be most likely multiple seasons if they don't mention that. They're always pretty specific when they announce these sorts of things. At least they were during the big 10 episode or the 10 series announced thing from the big old announcement for a couple weeks back. But what's also, they also introduce us to, yes, Fennec Shan, played by Ming-Na Wen, is going to be reprising here as well. Her role. Obviously, Tamora Morrison's going to be back. And we were talking about this guy a few minutes ago, Robert Rodriguez, along with Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau, are going to be executive producers. So there you have it. Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni still on board with this. They're going to be in charge of 4 different series. This is going to run concurrently with The Mandalorian. Mandalorian season 3 will not be out in December like we first thought it was. It's going to be out sometime after. And that's when the scheduling will become very interesting for us Star Wars fans going into 2022. Because if you guys didn't already know, they are currently shooting Cassian Andor, and they're currently shooting Boba Fett at the same time. So I have a feeling, if we're talking about scheduling, we're going to get the Book of Boba Fett in December. We're going to go right into Cassian Andor, and that's going to break up the Boba Fett and Mandalorian season 3. But there's also a wild card in there as well, because then you have the Bad Batch animated series. Are they going to have Bad Batch, coming out during the same time as a live action show? We have no idea. Are they going to want to overload themselves? So just speaking about the announcement, really, really badass looking logo. And I do want to mention how much I like the name of the show. They've had a trend going forward. Oh, Solo, a Star Wars story. Oh, Rogue One was actually unique and interesting. Oh, we got Obi-Wan Kenobi, same. We got Lando, we got Andor. You got all these named characters, but there's not a lot of flair. It's just the names. I love how they're calling it Book of Boba Fett, because this just adds a little more oomph to like the whole character of Boba. Like he is this fabled mysterious warrior that has a whole book written about him. This guy means business. We're learning the Book of Boba Fett. Maybe season 1 will be called Book 1 or Chapter 1 or something like, or Act 1, and they can tell a story like that. So we're going to go over our initial thoughts real quick. Ben, what was your, I know we already knew it was what the Book of Boba Fett was, but overall feelings of it officially being announced on StarWars.com.
Well, it officially being announced is a relief because, as we know, being Star Wars fans, over the past few years, there's been so many things now, quote unquote, confirmed, quote unquote, not confirmed, and all this stuff going back and forth. So it's just, it's such a relief that Star Wars officially came out and said, "Yeah, we're doing it. We're doing the Book of Boba Fett." And just in general, really, all of these shows and the Rogue Squadron movie and the Taiga movie, it's nice they actually can, Star Wars has had the habit of not committing. It's the whole thing like when you're dating someone. You want to date them, but you don't want to get married to them. And that's kind of Star Wars. That's kind of been Star Wars' attitude. Like, hey, let's date these movies and shows, but let's not marry them so we don't have to make them. We can always just break up with them and not ever make them. So Star Wars, it's nice seeing Star Wars. I think The Mandalorian has really given Star Wars and Lucasfilm and Disney as a whole more confidence into just committing to these shows, and that's why they came out swinging and announced 10 and then 11 projects total. So I think it's just I think it's really good that they did that, but specifically for the Boba Fett show, like you said, Chris, I love the title. I think the title's great. Especially I like the idea. I was talking about this with my cousin in Seattle, that I like the idea that you have these shows as or books, things along those lines, because we we are, we're watching a book live. Like, it's really cool seeing, and it gives me so many different ideas, because think about it this way: we have Mando, Boba, Rangers, blah 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 blah. What if we eventually end up getting like live quote unquote books, like live Lost Stars, live Bloodlines, live whatever, and we a book form or something. And I think it gives Luke a bazillion different potential project ideas if they stick with that type of like book format.
Oh yeah. So hey, we have Milton joining us, everybody. So Milton,
What's up, guys?
we were
Man,
just talking all about Book of Boba Fett. We were talking about the documentary that came out on Christmas Day. So we'll just jump right off. Book of Boba Fett. It got officially announced. We know it's actually a series, not a mini series. A series that could possibly have 2, 3, maybe 4 seasons. Who the heck knows? It's gonna run concurrent with Mandalorian. Mandalorian season 3 is gonna come out after this, so it's gonna be the first big live action thing for 2021. So what are your thoughts on that, man?
No, I'm excited for that. I think, we all, as fans of Star Wars, wanted to see what's going on with Boba Fett. I'm thinking that hopefully this show talks to us about, clearly what his journey is going to be post Mandalorian, but also what happened to him when he fell in the Sarlacc pit. Clearly, that's an answer we all want to know as fans. So I'm
Oh yeah.
hoping, and I think we might have mentioned this last week, maybe they'll do some type of Arrow flashback type thing with the present storyline with Boba, but also he's talking about his past when he fell into the Sarlacc pit and how he got out. So yeah, I think I'm hyped for the show. So far with Star Wars in their series in particular, I'm very satisfied with what they've done and have a lot of faith that these creators will now take these characters and expand them.
Heck yeah. Well said. Well said. I do want to acknowledge the chat real quick because we're getting some comments in here. We got the Lowdown Show. He was saying it's a great story. The moon and the stars align, about how Jon Favreau and team are just doing so well with getting these spin-offs knocked in. He's saying he can't wait to watch the gallery. Heard great things. Did you watch the gallery, Milton?
I actually did. I watched it last night.
Nice. Yeah. What were your
Um,
quick thoughts on that?
I, I loved it. Again, to me, because I watched that first, and then I went back and watched the Revenge of the Sith
Mm-hmm.
documentary. So much similarities with those two documentaries because we got to see the story process, the storytelling process, and the consistent thing that I took away from both, and mainly the gallery one, they really were all about telling a story.
Mm-hmm.
They everything that they did was all about enriching and enhancing the story of the Mandalorian in that particular part of the world. I
Mm-hmm.
love that. That's why I get so excited when I hear about these directors spinning off into another series, or they're bringing in storytelling directors. Like, I really enjoyed the part with Robert Rodriguez's love for Star Wars and how
Yeah.
he talked about his sons
Uh-huh.
putting on
Yeah.
equipment, but then using figures to do
Yeah.
pre-visual shots, and they showed it to John and Dave, and Dave was in love with it. He's like, "Oh my god, that's the best previs I've ever seen." It's like these guys, yeah, like no, seriously, and like these guys are like children
Yep.
with their with this project, but they're grown adult great storytellers, and they care about the product, and I love that. I every time I watch these documentaries, I get more and more excited for the future of Star Wars, because I think Kathleen Kennedy and Bob Iger now understand. Okay, we need to put it in the hands of these guys and women who understand Star Wars itself, but understand how to tell a rich story.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
far with The Mandalorian, even with the end of Clone Wars and thus pushing forward, I think we're going to continue to get that. Now the question is going to be, will we get that in the movies and whatever projects they come out with later down the road when it comes to filmmaking?
Mm. Mm. Yeah, that's the thing is they got the series lined up really well right now. How are the movies going to work out in about 3
Yes.
years? You know, Rogue Squadron. Hey, people are saying it's even possible that this could tie into the Mandalorian verse or whatever, Mando verse as I call it. You know, that could be something
Yeah.
with what is his name? Something the dude that I keep getting his name mixed up. Teva. Carson Teva, right? That's the guy's
Carson
name.
Okay.
Teva.
Yeah.
That's the guy. Finally
Well,
got it.
well, the Rogue Squadron movie is being directed by, I believe, written also too, maybe by Patty Jenkins, correct?
Mhm. Actually, she
So
said she doesn't know. She doesn't want to tell us who's writing them yet. So I assume that she's
okay,
just directing them.
but she's directing it. We know
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And we've seen her work as a director, not just even on Wonder Woman. She's done other work. I think she
Okay.
did directed the movie called Monster
Oh
with
yeah.
Charlize Theron, I believe,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
That
yeah.
won an Oscar. So we know she can tell a story when it comes to great characters.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, look at all her projects, especially with Wonder Woman. She knows how to tell a story. So I trust that Patty Jenkins will be the next great filmmaker when it comes to the films. Like I said, now, this is I'm still hesitant about the other projects that they're doing when it comes to film. Again, we've been burned by that, but I think Star Wars now is starting to get it back on track.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I heard you mentioned before, Ben, about the relationship that Star Wars is having with people now, and whatnot, and how you really don't want to date them or something to that extent. I think you're absolutely accurate. It makes sense to me. You want to test it out, see how it feels, and then potentially see if that's something that we want to go. I think
Mm-hmm.
Star Wars with the Mandalorian right now has done a lot of dating, and I think they're now really starting to commit to these series or where we need to go.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh yeah,
yeah.
definitely.
We got Exotic Red Tadpole. He's chiming in on this very topic. He's saying, I'm happy for sure. I think the move from series has opened a lot of doors for Disney. I think one of the things shows can do is spend more time into the lore. They can also allow the watchers to have more time to digest the content. Yeah, very, very well said, dude. I'm assuming you're a dude, girl, whatever. Sorry. You're whatever you
Yeah.
want to be. But, that's a good point there, is that we got a week to week content that we can talk about as we're doing right now, right? You go into your job, your coworkers watch the show, you're able to experience it rather than like a one-time movie where you talk about it for a day, then you kind of forget about it. Or at least
Right.
the casual person will forget about it. We keep talking about it, but your coworker will probably be on to the next thing. Whatever. It's just nice to have a different kind of content and to dive further into the characters, peeling back the layers. Like, look at the Mandalorian, man. Look at how far, we're gonna get into this in a few minutes here as we finish up talking about this. But look at how far he's come since season 1. That 16 hours or not exactly, well, 16 episodes, I should say, worth of content focusing on him. That there's no way they could have done that in a movie because they had to take its time with what they
Right.
were trying to tell. It depends on the content, right? Like Rogue Squadron might be better off being told as a movie. They got to pick and choose now, is essentially what Disney says. What separates this from being a good series? What separates this from being a movie? If you're dealing with starfighters in epic battles, that budget might be a little bit too high to have as a series, right? Like, there's going to be so much more ILM work that's not cheap. So they could probably get that in a series and back it up by maybe comics and books to flesh out the characters a little bit more. So it's just interesting how that is going. But he's also
No, I agree with
yeah.
that.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Chris, I'm sorry to interrupt, Chris, but I think Ben can back me up on this. Ben, I think you and I are pretty, confident to say that we're both big, CW Arrowverse fans. So seeing
Yep.
how that universe, Chris, has really
Hmm.
expanded from 2012 with the Arrow, then going to Flash, then Legends, then Supergirl, Black Lightning, and other spinoffs. Now they took the time to take some minor characters and enrich them into that series. I mean, the Atom, for example. Nobody can tell me that they knew who the Atom was or his particular skill set until he was introduced in Arrow season 3, and then he spun off the
Yep.
Legends, and everyone knows who that character is. Look at Black Lightning. Yeah, Black Lightning's a historical character in DC, but no one really was all about Black Lightning until they did the show.
Yeah.
Then they did the crossovers. I mean, like Heat Wave, Captain Cold, like
Uh-huh.
CW TV, and my point is this: TV now and series now are where it needs, or I think where everyone's really pushing because you have more time to enrich the characters,
Hmm.
expand the universes, take smaller characters, heroes, villains, and make them more relevant. I was just watching. I just got HBO Max, like I said, on
Yeah.
Friday to watch Wonder Woman, and
Okay.
I started watching the animated series Beware the Batman.
Oh.
And I was like, this came out in 2013. They had characters on there like Magpie. Who the hell is
Who
Magpie? I
the
didn't know who
hell?
that person was. It's a villain. But then after seeing them take a
Yep.
minor villain and expanding her character, I said, oh, I can now see her in a cinematic
Whoa.
viewpoint or as a bigger character. Tobias Whale. We know he's a solid DC
Oh
villain,
yeah.
but they expanded his character. Now he's a villain on the Black Lightning
Yeah.
TV show. It's like TV and little miniseries are the way to go because you can now have a chance to tell stories with minor characters that we wouldn't have told stories before.
Yeah, I
You
think
know,
they're
Oh,
Rogue,
for
yeah.
sure.
yeah.
I
Go
think
ahead.
like
I'll go ahead, guys.
big event movies will be something very rare, right? Like
Hmm.
let's say, hey, let's throw this out there. They're talking about, these 4 seasons or these 4 separate series like colliding into a massive event. What happens if the event is only is in the movie theaters? What happens if the event that concludes The Mandalorian ends up in a 3-hour epic Avengers style movie that it can't be done any better justice than being on the movie screen? So it's
Right.
occurrences like that they have to really put this stuff in the movie theater. Or if you're expanding the era, let's say Taika Waititi is doing Dawn of the Jedi, like something that's so profound, like the start of the Jedi Order and the beginning of the Sith. That's probably better off to be on the big screen because people want to see that, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yep.
So
Yeah, that's
that's yeah.
my, oh yeah, I agree. Well, like with Star Wars, I feel like Star Wars on the big screen has to be something special. Like
Mhm.
when, the original trilogy prequels, even the sequels and Rogue One and Solo, when they all were coming out, they were potentially very special movies just because Star Wars, is so culturally known. Like that's one thing I think that's really surprised me is Mando has made Star Wars even more culturally relevant than it has been in
Hmm.
since say probably since before Force Awakens came out. Like Mando has really brought back Star Wars into the forefront of things. Like you and I were talking about, Chris, before we got on the call. You walk into a hardware store and you see Grogu. You see little Grogu in
Yeah.
hardware stores. I mean, like me, for example, like look right here. I have a couple little
There it
guests with
goes.
me. So my cousin got me the actual life-size Grogu. This is
Nice.
the 17-inch version, just life-size Grogu. And then so everyone knows me as like the Star Wars guy. I got two of these little
Look at
animatronic
him.
animatronic Grogus.
Oh,
Oh wow.
whoa, whoa, no way. Oh, that's so cool.
That's crazy.
Yes.
What?
And it even comes with his little mudhorn sigil
Oh.
symbol. And so I got two of those, but here's the thing. Like sure those are freaking awesome little collectibles, but my point being, like with Star Wars, you really have um it really is crossing so many cultural lines
Oh yeah.
because, like, my dad doesn't watch anything Star Wars. Like, he only knows Star Wars because I watch Star Wars, and that's about the extent of it. So, like, he gets me this little animatronic Grogu. He's like, "Hey, I got you this little Yoda guy from that Star Wars show you watch. I figured you'd like it." Um, like, so, for even people that are not watching Star Wars, they kind of have an idea of what a popular thing in the Star Wars universe is right now. So I really think that's a good thing because, say, 2-3 years ago, I highly doubt that was the case, with the way things were going in general with, like, the Star Wars fandom, just
Mhm.
the overall look on Star Wars. I really think things are going toward the positive now, and like, sure, people may have liked a lot of the projects and everything that have gone on, and I have as well, but I really think Star Wars is becoming more of a welcoming place right now because, so we have these one-off movies. We have,
Mhm.
like, whatever the sequels or Rogue One or Solo, and people will sit down. You go to the theater, you'll watch them, you'll talk about it for a few days and move on. That I mean,
Mhm.
that's how it is for any movie, even Avengers Endgame. You watch it, you talk about it for a week, and you move on. But with a show like Mando or Book of Boba Fett, it's like an event every single week. That's one of
Mhm.
my most favorite things about watching shows.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
I mean, we always bring up the Arrowverse as an example, but it's such a good example. Literally, when when we're watching Arrow, it's literally, since it's 22 episodes, it's literally basically 6 months out of the year. Like, every single week, we're sitting down to watch an episode,
Hmm.
and, like, literally, like, so it's an event for the entire year or half year basically, because we're getting to talk about Arrow throughout the week, and then lead up to it and blah 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 blah. So it's kind of like a bonding thing for people that watch shows versus movies. It's one off and move along. For a show, you
Mhm.
really get to, like, bond and talk about it with your friends and family and people online. And I think that's one of the great things about Star Wars because it's so culturally known in the theater. Now that they're, like, dominating on TV, it's such a strong thing because, I mean, the biggest example of a TV success is obviously Game of Thrones.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
look how cultural that was.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
that's,
Yep.
every single week, that's like the show. So I really think Mando is heading in that trajectory where
Mhm.
it is, we're going on that type of a route, really.
Yeah, and 40 minutes later, let's finally get into it. So, part of that reason is season 2 is putting this show on the pedestal of greatness of TV for a number of reasons. We're going to break it down like this. We're going to go through a couple of topics that have come up, and we're going to just kind of go off the tip of our head, just talking about what we think is what we liked out of those topics the most. So, I have a couple here. First one we're going to just go through here is, let's see, our favorite new side character. So I'm not, I won't limit it, but I mean, none of the main characters, obviously, uh, but somebody maybe who appeared in one episode or something like that. So I'll go first, and I will say my favorite side character appeared in episode 1, and that's none other played by Timothy Oliphant, and that is Cobb Vanth on Tatooine. He was this character that shows up with Boba Fett's armor in the cantina and it almost gets gunned down by Mando right away. But like they become friends and he helps him with his mission on getting back um, their little village from the Krayt Dragon. So this character resonated with me first off because it was the first big revelation this season. Like, oh, they're bringing stuff in from the books now. Like this is where things get real. Like before season 1, you didn't have to know anything about Star Wars, and that was one of its charms. Is it was able to gather so many new fans because they didn't feel like they had to read 3 books and watch 3 animated series to understand where these characters are coming from. But they were able to bring in Timothy Oliphant's character by using flashbacks and using other good ways of just dialogue, right? Of just, okay, this is what this guy is all about. You don't have to read the interludes in Star Wars Aftermath by Chuck Wendig to know where he's coming from. but he's still a mysterious character, and he's got the Western vibe. And I love that whole setting of the episode. Obviously, on Tatooine, anytime you go there, it's like an old gunslinger. They're about to duel right in the cantina there. But I love the attitude of the guy. Oh man, I hope it's not the last time we see of him. I have a feeling, and I hope this is a good feeling, that we'll see him in the book of Boba Fett, because Boba Fett is back on Tatooine. Boba Fett mentioned Cobb Vanth by name when he's talking about the armor. So I think those guys will probably have paths that cross, because how the heck else are we not going to get that understanding of why Boba Fett just didn't go right for Cobb Vanth 5 years ago to get his armor? So, what do you guys think about Cobb Vanth this season?
Not to think, great character. He set the tone for for the series. Because again, I think we all knew clearly that wasn't Boba Fett, but just to see the interaction between Cobb and the Mandalorian, that first episode, just seeing how they work together, but the way he portrayed the character set the tone of what we're going to get this season. I think we all can agree that the premiere episode was a great tone setter, and I think that has a lot to do with clearly the Mando, but also with Cobb's portrayal, and most importantly, Timothy Olyphant. I mean, he's a great actor.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought Dave and John did a really good job casting that character and really saying, hey, the Mandalorian is going to meet some very interesting characters, and he will be challenged. But also, too, we're going to see a different side of him, and also a different side of planets that we known of. We had no idea about, that part of Tatooine, but the role that it played. So it was cool to see that.
Oh yeah, for sure. I loved, like you said, Milton, everybody knew that wasn't Boba Fett initially, but them including Cobb Vanth, I think the most important thing for me about that episode is basically it's Lucasfilm acknowledging, like, hey, canon matters,
Yes.
So I thought that was honestly the biggest takeaway really from that, because it just shows that all these books and other shows, like in the animated shows, they matter to the overall story, and they're not just some little side thing just to make money. They're impacting the story. So I really thought that was the big takeaway from that. And then, as you said as well, just the scale of the episode, setting the tone, it really set the tone for the season, the action, the story. Also, as John and Dave talked about, the whole Western style of the show, sticking to one-off episodes. I'm glad they did that. I'm glad they didn't roll over that storyline into the second one and then, and carry on and on and on. I love that the show basically stuck to that format from episode 1 to episode 8, basically. So I agree. I really like Cobb Vanth as one of the side characters I like.
Yes, and Scrambled Goose in the chat is saying, yeah, Cobb Vanth, so he agrees with me. Milton, who is your favorite side character in season 2?
Wow, it's easy to use the big ones. I'm not going to, because we all could say Luke if we really wanted to, but let's be real here. I'm gonna go Bo-Katan.
Okay.
Because I was thinking Ahsoka, but I think that would have been too obvious because of John or for Dave Filoni. But Bo-Katan, because it helped launch what season 3 is going to be about. To see, she was in the episode, 2 episodes this year? I think it was episode 4 and was it 3 and 8? I want to say. We all were blown away by that first episode, seeing those Mandalorians come out, kick some ass, save Mando, talk about the culture of Mandalorian, and then us seeing more like, oh, Mando's going to be tested and he's going to question his code as a Mandalorian. But seeing how they accurately portrayed Bo-Katan from Clone Wars, Rebels into live action, and this goes back to me watching the gallery last night, just seeing how they brought that character to life.
Yeah.
And I just felt that that's a strong female character that is very much needed in Star Wars right now. And they didn't sexualize her, which wasn't even needed. But you wouldn't even thought of that. It's like she's just a badass Mandalorian who's a female who has a history and the fans love. And I loved how Katie Sackhoff portrayed that character. I love how she pushed the lore of Mandalore, talked about the past of the Darksaber, and we all were very familiar with the Darksaber. But now we get to see maybe the War of Mandalore and potentially in season 3. So that's why I loved her character, because we know that's probably going to be a major launch point for season 3.
Oh
And
yeah.
honestly, I just love seeing the Mandalorians kick ass.
Yeah, I mean, you said it great because that was the best possible translation of an animated character to live action that we've ever seen.
Absolutely.
It may be anything, and I've not seen everything ever released from animation to live action, but there's not a whole lot of things that do that to begin with. But I think an argument could be made for that very point is that she first, and this was in a documentary, like Dave Filoni was messing with. I mentioned earlier on this episode where it's like, oh yeah, one day you'll be in live action, and he was just joking
Right.
around. And literally, they brought her into live action. The same actress that did the voice. She's in very, very great physical shape, so she could easily pull that off. But like everything from the hair to the eyebrows, even she was saying, it's there, and you see that story continue. You're seeing that story continue
Yep.
into the future, which is just an awesome point. The physicality of her, and like you said, how it's gonna actually factor into the future plot now with Mando. What is going on? It's basically Game of Thrones and Star Wars. You got this guy who has a claim to the throne. You have this girl who's got the
Mhm.
claim to the throne. It's absolutely awesome. But yeah, Ben, what did you think about Bo-Katan? Do you agree with Milton on one of the better characters this season?
Yeah, she's definitely one of the better characters. I really love the way they introduced her. You know, right when Mando was getting jumped by those pirates,
Mhm.
like her just like talking over the comm link, like we have your back, brother, and like coming in and just like kicking all their butts, like that just gave me chills. Like it was such a great entrance to a character we all know and love, but it was a great entrance for a character that maybe the general audience doesn't know, and then these people are probably watching her going, dang, now we're getting another woman Mandalorian, and she's like kicking all this ass and stuff. I mean, heck, even later in the episode when after she talks about him being in Death Watch and he flies off
Yeah.
all upset, like I love when that guy's talking to Mando. He's like, talking to him about him killing his brother and blah blah blah, and then you hear Bo-Katan chime in. She's like, "No, I was the one that did it," and just takes that guy out too. Like it was just such a great entrance. Like her character, like it was just amazing. Like, and then Katie Sackhoff, the way she plays her does such a great job. Like she really translates the character over from TV to animation, or animation to live action just seamlessly. And then even in the final episode with her,
Yeah.
I love the awkwardness almost when Gideon's like, no, you can't have the Darksaber.
Yeah.
And like, she's like giving such like an awkward look on
Ooh.
her face, like, what do we do here now? So I just thought it was really, her character was a really great addition to this season of Mando.
Heck yeah. So what's your favorite character this season, Ben?
Gosh, that's a tough one because I was thinking about Bo-Katan, but Milton took that. I don't know. Like you said, you could say Luke, but that's kind of cheap. I think that's kind of a
Yep,
cheap
it's easy.
answer. And then even I don't want to say Boba Fett just because Boba really I feel like was really in the forefront in the final few episodes. So with that being said, I would say my favorite character, other than Boba or Luke, would have to be more of a pair of characters, the two pilots, Dave Filoni and then Carson Teva.
Carson
Oh,
Teva.
Yep, I can't think of Filoni's character's name. Is it Trapper Wolf
Trapper
or something?
Yes.
Wolf. Yep. Trapper
Okay.
Wolf.
Okay, yeah, Trapper Wolf and Carson. Like I really like those characters. Like especially Carson. Like
Yeah.
I always forget the actor's name, but he plays him so well. And I think honestly, there's a decent chance. As you mentioned earlier, Chris, if Rogue Squadron is say part of this universe, what if that guy is like one of the lead people in Rogue Squadron?
Yeah.
And it turns out to be him. Like I think there's a lot of possibilities, and at minimum, those two are probably going to be in the Rangers of the New Republic show. I would have to guess. So I really like them, just because even though, in my opinion, the Spider episode 2, was the weakest one, I really like that they, set the tone because they said, in these trying times, like they were talking about the
Yeah, trying
galaxy,
times.
like that's really showing that, the Republic doesn't have all their crap together just yet.
Hmm.
So I think it's really good foreshadowing they laid into what we're getting, how they mentioned, these shows leading to a climatic story event. I think, with them saying that, it's going to, it's just foreshadowing to this big, massive event because
Right.
even up to this point, we've had some Empire stuff, but we still haven't seen the full scale of like
No.
who's Gideon working for. Like, obviously it's Thrawn, but
Or
we
it could
still
be a
haven't really.
competitor to Thrawn. Who knows?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, yeah, that's true too. But we still haven't seen the full scale, like we haven't seen the scale of like how many ships does the Empire
Mhm.
really have? And I think there's a good chance we'll see that in season 3 of Mando. Maybe they're occupying Mandalore and like, there's thousands of them or something.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna turn over to the comments. We got a question from Scrambled Goose. He's
Yep.
saying, dudes, I still need to know how Sabine giving her saber was any different from Din handing it to her. Okay, so I have a couple theories. The first one is maybe not the one everybody wants to hear, but maybe she's not old enough. Maybe she wasn't old enough to rule Mandalore, so she just had to like forfeit the dark saber. But another realistic version of that could be that Sabine never got the dark saber from combat. She never fought Darth Maul from it. He just absent-mindedly like left it there, and she took it.
Hmm.
So therefore, she never got it through trial by combat, which is why she was able to give it to Bo-Katan because she never fought him. So that way she had it. But I'm just interested to see like how the heck did Bo-Katan lose that thing to Gideon? Because Gideon did not
Right.
fight very well, if you ask me. Like he was like
Yeah.
off center. Like how did he
Right.
defeat her to get that thing?
And they make a point to talk about that in the gallery because I think Dave
Yep.
says like,
Oh,
Moff Gideon isn't a skilled swordsman, but he has a lot of rage,
oh,
anger and training, as a military officer.
Well, you
So
compared him to a politician.
yeah, pretty much. So it's like, how did he best Bo-Katan, or maybe she lost it to someone else where that he beat. We just don't know. And I guess I have a question for you two, and I guess maybe this is moving too forward. What's one character that you'd want to see in season 3 that we haven't seen yet?
Iden
Because
first, yeah.
I have mine.
Some,
I want to see
yeah.
because this actress is the perfect age to play this character. We've seen her before. I think this would tie in perfect to season 3 because I think season 3 will get a lot more politics. I think clearly and also with the War of Mandalore. I want to see Mon Mothma again.
Oh,
So maybe she can play a role in the
that'd be
politics
cool.
side of Star Wars. Again, we haven't really got a lot of that. Again, we know the New Republic's being formed right now, or it's formed. The Empire still have the remnants. Mon Mothma, the actress who still plays her,
Mm-hmm.
it's still fairly young, and they can age her up a little bit. But yeah, like I would like to see her and what role the New Republic has to play, because I want to see more of the expansion of the New Republic.
That's true. So
I-
they've already been giving us a great little backdrop with the X-wing pilots. So we know the military is out there, and we know they got decommissioned. We know that they had a treaty that they signed where they were going to decommission the military. They didn't need it anymore. At least they didn't think they needed it. So I would like to see, yeah, the more politics of the New Republic. And you're right. Yeah, I mean, you got Genevieve O'Reilly already playing the part.
Yep.
She's on set right now filming Andor. It's like, hey, why don't you just walk over to this studio and film this? Although they're probably in a completely different part of the country,
Right.
but at least they already have her makeup like and her hairstyle and everything already done. So it's not
Yeah.
like they have to do a whole lot of work figuring out what she's gonna really look like and clothing, I guess, and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, all you have to
Exotic,
do is age
yeah,
her up at this point because she'll be older, and like I think you can make that with CGI makeup. But yeah, I think Mon Mothma, we've seen her again, bits and pieces, but I think we now need to see how influential she was with the creation of the New Republic because she was in the book Bloodline.
yeah.
She was featured heavily throughout that book.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
For me, I would have to say Iden Versio from Battlefront 2.
Yeah.
Somebody put a big ass like rumored list like months ago about these are all the lead characters, and Gina Gavantgar was on the list. It's more of a throwaway thing. Like I don't know how they would fit her in there. According to like Battlefront 2, she's like left the New Republic and is off with what's his face Del Mico, right? They're both
Yep.
in the galaxy, running on that ship of theirs, going all over the galaxy. But in reality, somebody I want to see is Grand Admiral Sloane. Grand Admiral
Yeah.
Sloane, which would then connect to the First Order, and you could have a communication going between Moff Gideon, or if we do see Thrawn talking to her or something like that, just to kind of connect the universe a little bit more, because they've already been
Right.
doing a fantastic job about connecting the universe this season.
That's a good one.
Oh yeah, I think that's a really good one. Along with Mon Mothma, Mon Mothma is a great character. But for me, I would say out of obvious choices like Grand Admiral Thrawn or ones bigger characters like smaller characters, I would have to say, since we're going to be in this time period, I would love to see Wedge back because
Yes.
like one of my favorite parts, and like Rise of Skywalker sure may not be my most favorite Star Wars movie, but one of my favorite parts from Rise of Skywalker is just the little 2-second cameo from Dennis Lawson as Wedge. Like that part literally made me cheer in the theater, and what I had a couple people look at me like, "What's he cheering at that for?" But he's one of my favorite side characters. He's seen it all. He's was at the Battle of Yavin. He was all of it. In Hoth, he was leading the whole space mission with Lando for the Death Star 2. So I think he would be a really great character, even if he's not in there. Like, say, obviously, he wouldn't be Dennis Lawson because he'd be way too old. He's way too old now. But just the character himself, like, even if he's not, say, in there like live action, like being a pilot or something, like have him talk to Trapper Wolf and Carson Teva like on a hologram or something. Like General Antilles, blah 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 blah. Like I would love to see Wedge in one of these shows, and I think the highest chance for any of the X-wing related stuff will definitely be the Rangers show.
Good point.
And then also to throw out there in regards to like the question from the commenter earlier, I really think with the whole Darksaber thing with Sabine and Bo-Katan, like a lot of people are looking at it from the whole trial by combat thing, but also I'm kind of looking at it from an angle of what if Bo-Katan was basically like say shell-shocked or so surprised that what if her being the quote unquote leader of Mandalore, what if she basically overlooked that rule, overlooked that that creed basically when she got the Darksaber from Sabine, and then Gideon basically calls her out in front of another Mandalorian, and now she's like, wait, I can't take the Darksaber from Den because maybe I have been a pretender this entire time. Like, maybe that's one of the reasons why she's like, crap, because if you think about it, no one really would have probably called her out up to this point in front of other Mandalorians. So him calling her out in front of Den, what if it's her just basically realizing, crap, I have been a fake leader of Mandalore this entire time. So maybe it could be from that angle. And I think there's a few workaround ways they could work around it, just so they don't get too dicey with canon. Or heck, the real world answer is maybe they just made a mistake in their writing, and maybe they just forgot that maybe Dave forgot he had that in Clone Wars or something.
No way they forgot about that.
I mean that's a potential. Like I hate saying that, but I mean you never know.
It's
like,
a potential, but we all know Dave don't miss nothing.
No, I think honestly we could get well, hey, like we always reference the Arrowverse. I think we could get some type of a in the Arrowverse we had Arrow and the Flash training fight before
Yeah.
training fight. I think we're gonna get. I think we could potentially get a Bo-Katan Mando, some type of a quote unquote fight. Like maybe don't use deadly force type of like wrestling match or some type of a fight between the two of them,
Right.
for the Darksaber to make it more legitimate. I think there's a decent chance for that.
Or it could just turn into Game of Thrones and be Daenerys be Bo-Katan, and we have Din being Jon Snow. Jon Snow didn't want the throne. Daenerys wanted the throne. And you have the same thing going on here. He doesn't want the Mandalorian throne, but she does. So it's like, oh, do they get together and something happens? We don't know.
Right.
Talking about going back a little bit, I do want to comment on Wedge because I have some backstory on Wedge, and so does Milton. Because if you read the Aftermath trilogy, Wedge gets messed up, man. He gets caught scouting out the Imperial Remnant, and it's Ray Sloan that just like destroys his ship. I'm pretty sure he's like super traumatic incident with like his leg like shattered and everything like that. And then you see him like a couple months later, and he's talking. This is in the Star Wars Squadrons game where he's talking about Rogue Squadron off on their own mission. He's gonna help out Talos Squadron, which is one of the squadrons are in the one mission going to Yavin to steal a Star Destroyer for the New Republic to commandeer to turn it into a star. What the hell is it called? One of the Star Fortresses or whatever they're called.
Yeah.
Skyhawk. Or Starhawk. Starhawk. There we go. Finally. Didn't get much sleep last night, so my brain's not 100% right now figuring out all the little canon tidbits. But I think it would work better as him coming into. I mean, yeah, he could have like a CG appearance, but I don't know if that would. They could just recast him probably. But I would see him more as Dennis Lawson coming in to lead or hand the baton off to the next generation, because the little thing on StarWars.com said like something about the next generation of pilots. I could see him after the Rise of Skywalker, them cleaning up the First Order or dealing with a new threat. And he basically is that guy who's like, yeah, when I was your age, we were fighting the Empire with every little ship we had, and him giving advice. But I digress. So I do want to shout out the chat once again. Everybody's firing in responses left and right. You guys are talking about the armor wanting to be in season 3. That's awesome. We have M. Pooley talking about that. The armor versus Bo-Katan. We didn't have the armor at all in season 2. And that's a really good idea because she's part of the Watch, which is the complete opposite of what, Bo-Katan Kryze believes in. So I could see them butting heads. And you can see, like, is Din going to side with the armor? Is Din going to side with Bo-Katan? There's like a big, consequence, risk and reward for doing that. So that could be a whole nother storyline there. So I think that's interesting because we know she's alive, but where the heck did she go?
Oh yeah, I think there's a potential we could have this whole Mandoverse turn into Game of Thrones, a Star Wars story, just because we have the whole central thing in the Mandalorian show now being about Mandalore the planet. So what if we get to a point where we have Mando season 3, we have Rangers, Boba, Ahsoka. What if all these shows? What if we get to a point where maybe people in the Rangers group are like, hey, maybe we should occupy Mandalore for the rebellion, and then you get Ahsoka helping out with whatever, and maybe she's like interested in it, or like whoever she's with is interested in it, and then obviously Din will be with Bo-Katan in that storyline. And then what if when say the Boba show?
Yeah.
What if Boba's taken out the crime lords, or let's say season 1 he takes out a bunch of crime lords and he basically becomes the kingpin of the underworld. What if Boba looks at what if he remembers, hey, I can take that Darksaber and be the leader of Mandalore, and I'll have basically the central planet of the entire Mandalorian culture. What if we could have Boba, Mando, Bo-Katan, the rebellion, like you could have 4 or 5 different parties, the Empire, 6 different parties, all be interested in taking Mandalore, and we could have an all-out potential war.
Oh man, I like where you're going with this. This makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that's really cool.
Because my thing with the Boba thing, see, that's why I think we have a chance of that, something like that happening. Because if if Boba's just going to be like, they said it's running concurrently with the Mandalorian show, so I feel like they're not Star Wars. Like I always say, Star Wars can't help themselves with, they love to connect things. So I really think there's a good chance the Boba show is gonna connect back into Mando, and I think it's gonna be something along those lines. Like Boba's getting greedy with power, and he's like, "Hey, let's take this Darksaber." Especially, he's obviously confident about himself. How he spoke to Bo-Katan and Casca Reeves, like so. I really think there's a good chance we get something along those lines.
That makes a lot of sense because you're thinking about the two other series that connect the Mandalorian. Like Ahsoka is gonna deal with the Force. We're gonna see Grogu
Yep.
probably and not. Obviously, New Republic Mandalorians. There's still a lot of stuff there, but it's like, where does the underworld play into all this? Where does Boba Fett turn to be a connection to the Mandalorian? So, yeah, maybe he just tries to keep gaining power. Mandalore is, and they were saying in the Clone Wars or something like Mandalore is the capital of like 1,000 systems or some crazy like number. Like it's a lot bigger than I expected it to be. So maybe he's getting a little power hungry. Um, I do want to move on to the next point I have here, and that's our favorite sequence or our favorite moment in season 2. We'll start with Milton first.
Oh man, that's tough. So many good ones.
Yeah, I know.
Oof. I mean, can I? I'm gonna name two if you don't mind me naming two,
Okay.
because the first one I can think of, the premiere episode of the Crate Dragon. That
Yeah.
whole fight
Oh
with the Crate
yeah.
Dragon was awesome. I mean, because I didn't expect that. I mean, I know there were talks about, excuse me, bringing in the Crate Dragon, but clearly, I mean, that's from Legends and the games that we played
Mm-hmm.
growing up as kids. So seeing that, I was like, oh, that's dope, and how they defeated that Crate Dragon and
Yeah.
working with the Sand People was awesome. So that's probably my one B. My one A, oh, probably like the rescue,
Mm-hmm.
the whole rescue episode, like how they portrayed that and how we got to see the teamwork with the Mando crew and Moff Gideon's away how he attacks things and whatnot. Just that whole sequence of them trying to save the child and clearly when Luke showing up, I thought that action sequence was awesome. Just because it was nostalgia. I mean, we've seen that particular type of setting with the Rogue One Darth Vader scene, but to see
Mm-hmm.
one of our childhood heroes show up,
Yeah.
the way they built that sequence up, the way it was
Uh-huh.
shot, the lighting, the cinematography, the music, the tension, it was just a great way to conclude one of the final action scenes in that series.
Yeah, I gotta go ahead and agree with you on Luke Skywalker. That was gonna be one of mine. Obviously, favorite character in Star Wars. Seeing him come back in action and seeing him do stuff we haven't seen before, but we only imagined, and them just like in my eyes at least, like stepping that up even further with just the overall him being like a predator, just going at it,
Mhm.
but feeling so confident.
Absolutely.
For me, I'm gonna have to go up until that point. I thought the best sequence was with Boba Fett. I really enjoyed the heck out of that. Seeing what Robert Rodriguez was able to convey
Mm,
through the violence, and it just like it's just hardcore violence. Like he's spearing people with a gaffy stick, and we've never seen Boba do anything with that, even without his armor. Just like that moment where he just hiding behind a rock, he's just taking guys out. He's dragging it. He's dragging it through the dirt, and then slashes the guy up like that. Like, oh my gosh! And then when he gets the armor, it's just game over. You see the stormtroopers running away. They say, "This is not worth my life. I'm getting the heck out of here." He fires a rocket and says, "Oh, I meant the other one." Like, come on, how
right.
much more badass can you get than that? It was just one of those moments that, again, I've been waiting for years. Didn't know that would ever happen. We only had comic books and novels explaining that he survived the Sarlacc pit, but to see it and like the way Robert Rodriguez was explaining it, seeing it like the first and last time we might ever see Boba Fett doing anything like that. And it's a gift that we got 2 more episodes of Boba Fett, and now that we have an entire season. So that is my favorite sequence, of course, next to the Luke Skywalker one.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, I
that
think.
sequence was awesome. It was an awesome sequence. Go ahead, Ben.
Oh yeah, no, I totally agree with both of you. One of my favorite sequences, of course, were Luke, Boba Fett. Boba Fett, his whole entrance, just not even his main action sequence when he was in the armor. Before that, his whole entrance, just establishing like the seat. I think almost just as much as him being in the armor. His entrance when he walks in, and he's like, "I've been tracking you, Mandalorian," and
Yeah.
we basically establish this dude means business. He tells us, like I pointed out in the episode, he tells us like, "Hey, I have my sniper friend over there ready to
Hmm.
blow your kid away." So like, just reestablishing like this character means business. Like he's the guy, and like Robert Rodriguez said, he's a legend, so he has to act like one. So I really loved Boba's entire sequence in that episode. I thought that was great. And then of course the Luke episode. Those are probably my two favorite ones. I would have to say, and echoing every point both of you said about Luke and seeing our childhood hero in action and everything. And one of my favorite parts from that specifically is just seeing Luke basically flex on like the audience almost as a whole, like, hey guys, I'm still badass. Like, him just slicing through all these dark troopers and then at the end of it just crushing the one.
Yeah.
Like, I just thought, I was like, boy, he is strong with the force here. Like
Uh-huh.
we our characters barely survived one dark trooper, much less
Uh-huh.
Luke just going right through, and Luke doesn't even have Mandalorian
Yeah.
armor. So I mean, gosh, he's just wearing cloaks. So I really love that. And I think, just to throw out a different scene, um, since you both had already mentioned those two scenes, I really think one of the most least talked about but underrated scenes are from actually episode 2 with the frog lady and spiders, because sure, it was obviously my least favorite episode, but I think that was the episode that established Mando's relationship with Grogu, because he really got to see the frog lady,
Yep.
like see her with her kids and stuff, and really get to see that parent kid relationship. And I think that's something that had been kind of missing in the show up to that point, really, because up to the point, heck, Mando in the 6th episode or 7th episode last season, with when they break Bill Burr and them,
Hmm.
when they have Bill Burr and them help out, or Mayfeld help out, he basically refers to Grogu as a pet. So now he's actually, he sees this frog lady with her kids. He's actually seeing Grogu as his kid, which obviously it leads up to the big moment in, the 7th episode of this season, when he basically reiterates Moff Gideon's entire speech. I have
Hmm.
something, you have something I want, and blah 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 blah. Like that whole connection, and it really just strengthened his whole relationship with Grogu to a whole nother level from where it was before. And I would have to say that's like my below the Luke and Boba thing. And like I said, just to be a little bit different, that I would have to say that's like my other main favorite scene.
Yeah, great point on that, because this is a great example of you watched an episode as they're airing for the first time. You're watching the episode again, least favorite episode by far of season 2. Not a
Mm.
whole lot happened in that episode. It was the shortest episode, and basically not a lot happened. We're at the end of the season now, and you can look back saying, "Yeah, you're exactly right about that's how he learns parentage. That's when he really starts to think about Grogu differently." And without that episode, you wouldn't get some of the payoff we get later on in the season. And speaking of Grogu, we're going to jump into our favorite Grogu scenes. I'm going to start this one off. I'm going to say from that very episode, episode 2, right in the beginning of the episode, they got the Razor Crest. It's got some damage or something going on. So you got Grogu like crawled up in the crawl space, like trying to get the wires, and Mando is like, plug the red one where the blue one goes. And it just brought back memories of me and my father, because my father, he'd always be doing odd jobs and taking me along with him. He'd be trying to tell me something, and I wouldn't get the terminology, whatever tool he's looking for, whatever it is that he wanted. no, the other thing, no, you got to get the, so it just brought back memories for me because it was such like a relatable occurrence that I could see, and it was something that was happening in Star Wars, and the fact that he like almost gets electrocuted and Amanda's like all concerned, like, are you okay? Are you okay? Like I just love that sequence. But yet again, season 2, they had just as many probably big moments for Grogu as well. So I'll go to Ben for his for what he thought.
Oh yeah, there's like you said, Chris, that scene with Grogu was so cute, and it was just such a good scene. But I would have to say, gosh, there's so many good scenes with Grogu, honestly. Um, I would have to say, um, gosh, you really stumped me here. I would have to say my favorite scene with Grogu would probably either be the one where he's in the school with the kids when he like takes the cookie. I thought that was just such a
that's
good,
scene.
such a good little scene. Or I love when I just love the quick little shot in the first episode when the crate dragon is coming in and you see Grogu like initially he's like outside of the pot and then like
Yeah,
the next shot
yeah.
it quick shots and he's inside of like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
pot hiding. Like that's such a great little scene. Like it just made me smile so much. I would have to say that that's probably one of my favorite, of course. I mean Grogu's great wherever he is in this show.
That's like I thought that's like one of the containers he's hiding is like one of the things people spit in from like the Wild
Mm,
West. They call that a
yeah.
spittoon, don't they? Like he was hiding in a thing of spit.
Yep.
All right, we're gonna
Uh,
go to you, Milton, for the final thoughts on what your favorite Grogu moment is. Did you come up with one?
Yeah, I think it was whenever he met Ahsoka,
Oh
in
yeah,
that whole interaction, and the interaction between Grogu when we first as the audience learned his name, and then how um, Grogu didn't want to, I guess, like when Ahsoka tried to force test him, and he wasn't really responding well, and then uh, Mando stepped in and pulled out the silver ball, and he used the force and took it, and how excited Mando was. He's like, good job, buddy, good job. I thought that was a great scene because again, I think that also ties into what Ben said earlier about the parenting component and how like he's a proud father. Like he listened, even as I believe in the next episode,
yep.
whenever Mando and him are in the ship and he keeps saying his name and he's like Grogu and he turned around and like look like a
yeah,
little puppy,
love
Like a
that.
like and
dog.
he yeah, and he gets all excited when he responds to it. It's like, man, that's a cute little scene. Like, again, and we can all relate as being, having parents of our own, probably when they were excited about something that we did or proud of something that we did and how happy they got. You can see it in their face and their expression. So it was cool to see any times, again, those particular episodes, the Jedi and the tragedy episode, just see how the interaction really elevated and the relationship really elevated since we found out who his name, like what his name was.
Oh
So
yeah, love
Well,
that moment. Love
Milton,
that moment.
like with that episode, you know, I mean, like we were saying, it's cool seeing how these episodes all tie in together
mhm.
as once when we can finally look back on the season like we are now. Like I mentioned, or like you mentioned, Chris, the second episode wasn't. It was definitely the least favorites on a lot of people's lists, but the moments from that episode ties into what Milton's talking about, like with the Ahsoka episode as well as with the following episode. The parent relationship between Din and Grogu. I mean, you have Din saying Grogu, Grogu, and he keeps looking, and
Yeah.
then Din finally laughing. Like that was one of the biggest revelations really from that episode too. Just hearing Din
Yeah,
laugh, like
I know.
it was like whoa, it's
What's going
adding,
on?
but it's adding personality to Din, where as we mentioned before, he's been this stone cold
Uh-huh.
killer basically, and he's finally letting his guard down to somebody, and that
Mm-hmm.
turns out it happens to be Grogu, and I think it's a really great character arc for Din, honestly, or as we carry on, and I can't wait to see where it's going to lead us.
Heck yeah, heck yeah. Scrambled Goose is chiming into the previous topic. He's saying, wait, the best sequence is the Razor Crest being blown up and then panning to Din. Laugh. Oh,
Wow, that's terrible.
that's so bad. I really love that ship, but I feel bad for all those HasLab early subscribers that ended up getting this $350 thing, only to have it being blown up in like 2 episodes after they pre-ordered it. So we're gonna change gears a little bit. We are going to get into our positives, followed by what we thought were our negatives of season 2. So we're going to go to each one of us, and we're going to say one thing we liked about it, and we'll elaborate as a group on that, and we'll just kind of keep going around the horn until we think we exhausted everything we liked about this season. So Milton, we'll start with you. Just name one thing, one positive you liked about this season.
Oh man, one positive. I thought the storytelling was tight.
Okay.
The storytelling in itself, and maybe that's too vague. I guess the narrative itself and the continued path and what what the Mando's main mission was supposed to be. Very concise, very steadfast. He had a mission of getting to the Jedi or getting to the Mandalorian, to get to a Jedi, to get him to his people.
Yes.
They were very consistent about that in this season, which again, the storytelling was very tight. I thought, again, we all mentioned episode 2 was probably the weakest, but again, they still kept the narrative focused. We just got probably a little more character development in that particular episode, and it was one of those let me up episodes where it's okay, we just got done with the crate dragon, let's try to settle the audience down to really set the path for what we're going to see later. I thought the overall arc and story was well done. That was my positive taken away from this season.
I agree. That's actually one of the points I've thought about a lot when looking back at the season, thinking about this, filming this a couple days ago. Like, you're absolutely right, because season 1, he had a very clear path too. It was like, okay, he got this bounty. Turns out he's getting a heart for the bounty. He's getting the feels for the bounty. What does he do next? And that sets us up with season 2. Season 1 ended so great because it tells us exactly what we have to do. And like you said, find a Mandalorian, find a Jedi. The Jedi will point you to another Jedi, and then you give the Grogu to the other Jedi. And I was shocked too, by the way. Like, they actually gave Grogu up, who is the main part of what this series does so well, is this little puppet that just took over the world. So for them to be able to really have the cojones to pull that off and be confident that they could still tell the story for season 3, knowing that we're probably not going to see a whole lot of Grogu, if any, in season 3. But you're right, very tight storytelling. This is why these things are better than these cable TV episode or seasons that have 22 episodes. I guarantee you, if this had 22 episodes, we'd be talking about 5 or 6 episodes that spun their wheels and didn't do crap. Whereas 8 episodes, and again, and this, I'm going to talk about the timing, right? The episodes are a little bit all over the place as far as one episode being like almost an hour, another episode being barely 30 minutes, whatever. They're able to tell the stories they want to tell with not having a time constraint. You know, they don't have to make a certain time. They don't have to be cut short by a certain time. They tell the story what they need to tell, and that is getting the overall narrative. And like Ben was mentioning earlier about alluding to the fact that they still have that vibe where it's like every episode could almost be standalone, but especially this season more than season 1 really hammered home the point. In every episode, they would make a certain point or a certain nudge into the direction of the overall plot somehow. So it still ties things together, but it keeps the image of what made the first season so good and what drew us to that. Do you have anything to say about his point about the narrative overall, Ben, for season 2?
Oh yeah, I thought the narrative, the overall story was really well done. Just seeing how so many of the little things we've had throughout even season 1 into season 2 have played a role into say the season finale of this season. But even at that, like, just seeing how everything is connected but still standalone is a really good positive, just because, you know, as you just said, Chris, if this show was 22 episodes long, you know, there's a really good chance we get some filler or really bad episodes. I mean, you know, I love the Arrowverse, but there's a lot of positives to it, but There's a lot of filler episodes. Like Arrow, that show would have been much more higher quality if it would only been about 12 to 15 episodes versus 22, 24.
And
So,
season 4 was bad.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
season
Oh yeah.
4 was just bad.
Oh man.
But even at that, so like I really think with this show, they're really sticking to their guns, like, and they're not giving into fan pressures one way or the other. They're sticking to their guns. Like even Luke, look at Luke for the purpose of the story. Like he literally was the Jedi. I mean, Mando didn't specifically know he was the Jedi he was going to have to give Grogu to, but he was the Jedi that this entire season was leading up to. It was the mission, you know, take Grogu to a Jedi. So I really think them sticking to the story like that and really sticking to things, not letting characters overshadow. Like they still kept Din in the spotlight, and all the characters were side characters like Cod Banth, Bo-Katan, Frog Lady,
Oh yeah.
Carl Weathers and Gina Carano, and Cara Dune. You know, all of them. Ahsoka, even Luke. Luke, you could have brought him in early in the
Yep.
episode and just had him, you know, wreck shop the entire episode. And I mean, I would have been fine with 40 minutes of that, but even at that, you didn't. You still used him purposefully, and I really love the fact that they really stuck to their guns on that. And unlike, say, some of my critiques of, say, the sequel trilogy, they are not giving into fan outcry. They're sticking to their story, and it's great.
Yeah, that's right. Like, not overshadowing is a big deal. It doesn't get bigger than Luke Skywalker. So if you can manage to have Luke Skywalker as a side character, it'll never get bigger than that for our lead character, Din Djarin. So that just goes to show you how much as an audience for these last 16 episodes that we've come to really like Din as a main character. And that's saying a lot because we're caring about this dude that showed his face for all of maybe a minute of screen time in 16 episodes. So they've really done a great job developing Din Djarin. What I want to say for my next positive as we get into our positives for this season is just the care that was taken with expanding the world as far as characters. Going past their initial season where they had nobody that we knew. Everybody was a brand new character. Everybody, including the villain, Moff Gideon. Now, for us fans that have really dug in deep with the animated series, with the books, all that good stuff, with the games. There's even references to events that happen in the games, like Operation Cinder in Episode 7. There's awesome payoff for the fans to get to know these characters. As I mentioned, one of my favorites was Cobb Vanth from a freaking interlude of a book. Like, total of 15 pages in a book. He is like the most side character you can think of. To having Bo-Katan, to having Ahsoka Tano make her live action debut in The Mandalorian. Holy crap, did any of us see that coming like 12 years ago when that series came out and people were hating on Ahsoka Tano? Now everybody is just so overjoyed to see her make this triumphant arrival in that fantastic episode directed by Dave Filoni, by the way. And we get Luke Skywalker. We've already known Luke Skywalker, but the fact that they're able to tie him in. So yeah, Ben, what did you think about all the characters? A completely different kind of vibe from season 1 as far as that's concerned. And I think we lost Ben. All right, I'll go to you, Milton.
I mean, I have to agree with you on everything you said. I mean, I thought I really have no negative thing to say about that. Chris, I'm 100% in agreement. I thought that, you know, they did a good job with how they presented everything to us and how they progressed it. I mean, I can't really say nothing to further expand that just because I thought you explained it the best you can, and I think that how these creators put the show together was perfect. You know, again, expanded it. You know, like I said, for anyone watching this, I thought this particular season for sure really did a good job at expanding Star Wars. But I think, again, it also put the faith and trust back into like what this product was back in the 70s and 80s, and even when the prequel era. So.
Have anything to
Oh
chime in
yeah.
on that, Ben? I don't know how much of that you heard before you got disconnected.
Oh, it's good. I have a general idea of where you were with that. Well, I think with this season, the way they've expanded Star Wars, they've expanded it in a way where people who may have not been interested in these smaller characters, like you mentioned earlier, Cobb Vanth or Bo-Katan, or even Ahsoka. Like, you know, I have a few relatives. They had no idea who Ahsoka was coming into this,
Okay.
and I had my uncle. He asked me. He's like, "Hey, who's this character?"
Oh.
I said, "Hey, watch this, and that." And he watched it, and then he texted me the other day and was like, "Dang, because he actually just had knee surgery, so he texted me and was like, "Hey, those were, that's a really cool character." Or like even my cousin,
Nice.
even my cousin Keegan, that's always on here in the chats. He never was really interested in Star Wars Rebels before.
Okay.
And I think I messaged you about this, Chris. Like,
Yeah.
but he, I started telling him about like Ahsoka and Bo-Katan and the potentials of like Ezra and Grand Admiral Thrawn and this and that, the other thing. And then as he started seeing this show develop and see the direction we were heading in, with potential tie-ins to Rebels, he was like, I might check the show out. I said, just give it a shot. Like, watch it, give it a shot. So all of a sudden, I'm getting texts from him like 3 or 4 or 5 days in a row straight, binging all 4 seasons of Rebels, because he just kept texting me, oh my gosh, this show's so good, I can't believe it, blah 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 blah. And I love that, like knowing people like that like Star Wars but hadn't watched the shows are getting introduced to these characters. I think I kind of mentioned it way earlier a few weeks ago in one of our episodes. Big props to Favreau and Filoni. The way they're introducing these characters, they're introducing them in a new way. So like Cobb Vanth, for example, we all know Cobb Vanth, us as hardcore fans, but the general audience doesn't. So Favreau and Filoni, they're not excluding the general audience. They're introducing Cobb Vanth as if he's never been introduced before. But for us, it's a good payoff. Like, it all connects and makes sense for us who follow it. But also, he's getting introduced for the first time in a really cool way. Just like Bo-Katan. Bo-Katan, you could never know anything about her and get all you need to know from her episode this season. And I love that the way they introduced her, it just shows they're including everybody. Like, they're including all of us who followed everything so hardcore for our entire lives. But then the casual fans are like, man, this is a badass Mandalorian woman. Like, so it's so cool.
Right.
And, the way they're introducing and expanding the Star Wars universe and outside of universe, they're expanding the fan base as a whole as well. And that's a huge thing, in my opinion.
Yes, it's very, very difficult to give those guys the attention they deserve and balance it for the new people coming in. It's not easy, and I was very worried. I was very worried when all these rumors started churning up. Like, guys, these characters are gonna take over the show. They're too important to compared to Din Djarin. They're gonna take over the show. This and that. And how are the common viewer gonna even understand what their significance is without watching any of the previous stuff? Nope, I was completely wrong, and I should have had more faith because this is the same team that brought us season 1. Ben, positive from you for season 2.
Okay, to go along with both of your points, I would have to say a big positive for mine for season 2 would have to be probably just the way they managed everything. They managed everything so well. Like, Star Wars is impressing me so much. With ever since Mando season 1, they've impressed me so much. The way they've handled like the fan base with care, because we were all over the board the past few years with Star Wars and the fan base. I can that, and I think that's an understatement. But I think they're really handling things with care. Almost relating to, say, our last point. they're including everybody. Of course, you never should have the goal of just doing straight like pleasing the fans, fan service, because you have to tell your story, and they're telling their story, which is number one in my opinion. But they're pleasing everybody in a way that isn't just like, hey, let's go read Twitter and make that live action.
Yeah.
So I really am liking the fact that they're really just sticking with that and sticking to their story, like, and just the way they're managing all the characters. As we mentioned, they're not overshadowing certain characters. They're still keeping the spotlight on Din because it is his show. I mean, they should keep it on him. And it's nice seeing Star Wars go in that direction, versus how they've been, say, previously. So I would say that was probably my biggest positive, and just seeing the overall, like the way the creators of Star Wars talked about this season. Like, you have Favreau and Filoni talking about, hey, we're not paying homage. We're not looking at Star Wars for like the main source material, like for inspiration. We're looking at what George was inspired by
Yeah, I like
for
that
Star
they said
Wars.
that.
Like Kurosawa films and things like that. Like, I really love the fact that they even mentioned that in the gallery documentary. Like, Favreau says, like, a Western, a samurai, like,
Yep.
those type of things. I'm glad they're sticking with that trope versus like, hey, let's pay homage to Star Wars itself, because I think that's something, some of the other previous projects in Star Wars has gotten wrong. Instead of paying homage to, or getting inspiration from the things that Star Wars was inspired by, they were just trying to pay homage or get inspiration from the actual Star Wars content that was out there. And I think that's where there were missteps up to this point, up to season 1 of Mando. So I would have to say that's my biggest thing. My biggest positive really is just how they've really managed just everything as a whole. It's very impressive.
Yeah, Milton, anything to add on this?
I'd have to say I agree with that too. I mean, I think the biggest point you made, Ben, was like you said, how the creators of Mando have taken inspiration of what made Star Wars Star Wars. And I think I've echoed this so many times. I think Disney and Kathleen are finally understanding that you have to tell a rich story. It's not about it's not about their agenda. It's about, okay, how can we take what's already been created and expand upon that, but making sure we're telling a strong narrative with great characters that we can attach with. Mandalorian did it. Told 2 great seasons so far of great storytelling, because you had great directors and great writers on the show. Plus, you created characters that we can connect with and that we all love. And I think that's what's been missing in the films, and particularly with the sequel trilogy. I think everyone can agree. I mean, I think Rey initially was that character for everyone, and then, I guess Finn and somewhat Kylo Ren, but now they kind of fizzled out. I don't think there's any plans for those characters, because I don't think the storytelling was rich enough and it wasn't believable enough to where we can connect with those characters. This show has made it emotional again. And again, I'm seeing videos of grown men and women, I said this last week, crying when they saw Luke Skywalker, crying when they saw Mando take off his helmet and Grogu was touching his face. Like, that's how you do it. Like, hell, the only thing I can remember from the sequel trilogy was from the trailers, is when everyone saw Han and Chewie run onto the ship and say, "Chewie, we're home." Everyone was getting emotional about that. That's it. I mean, I haven't seen any movie, and maybe when Han Solo got killed.
That's
spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Movie came out, 5 years ago. But like, I think that's the last time we felt some type of emotion with Star Wars. And like you said, man, I think they really took inspiration from, like you said, the Kurosawa, the Western, the Buster Crabbe, Flash Gordon type movies back in the day. Like, the it's like, man, they got back to the fundamentals of what Star Wars was all about.
Mm.
And I think that's what's been missing, and that's why I think we all gravitated toward the show, because we all were like, "Oh my God, that is Star Wars."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Well said. Well said. And I can't really add anything else to that, Ben. So I'm gonna go
No?
to my next positive here, and I'm gonna say how the show expanded the storylines. So we were talking a little bit earlier about the narrative, the overall narrative, but what I really liked about season 2, and a lot of follow-up seasons for shows, they're really great when they do this, is they branch off. So, that first episode, we get another diverging storyline dealing with Boba Fett's armor. Ooh, what's the deal with that? He's got his armor on board. Where is that story going to fall into place? Then we get Bo-Katan, and she's talking about, how he is not part of the Watch. We get that whole storyline. Then we get the storyline with the clones. We get to know about, what's the blood, what's the donor, what's all that gonna be. Then we get the whole storyline with Ahsoka and mentioning Thrawn, like, ooh, where's that gonna go? There's just even Boba Fett, when he shows up, what's his plans? So there's so many more stories in this, whereas the first season, which it should have been by all rights, like, you're learning about the main character. You don't need to have too many characters, too many storylines in the first season, because then you get just jumbled up. But seeing how they had faith in their audience to be able to follow all these other storylines and give us fans more to talk about on the off weeks, off days in between the episodes, I think that was something that really matured the series and made it almost more like a traditional series where you have plot A, plot B, plot C. What did you guys think of that?
Ben, I'm gonna let you go first.
Oh, yeah. I would have to say I really like that format. I mean, to reiterate, as you said, season 1, you didn't need a bazillion different storylines. We needed to get the character of Din established. So I thought, season 1 was great for that. Season 2, we had so many different storylines late, and I just really think they did such a good job of them, because honestly, when we were coming into like the final few episodes, like after we got the Ahsoka episode done, I remember having conversations with a few of my friends, like, man, we have a bunch of, and that, that was only the 5th episode. I was thinking to myself, man, we have a bunch of storylines we have to get wrapped up in 3 episodes. Like, we got to get going. And, we had the Boba Fett armor, we had the clone stuff, we had the Bo-Katan stuff, we had the all kinds of stuff, like all these different storylines. And it's like, how are these going to get wrapped up in this season? And most of them did. Like, they all really did. So it's great they were able to do that, because honestly, I said it. I mean, heck, I said it on this podcast, on this live stream before. Like the Boba Fett episode, for example, for the very first one. If we would have had Din get his armor and then show Tamara Morrison at the end of the episode and then never retouch that again, that would have been a throwaway episode, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So, them reconnecting clear into the 6th episode, Boba Fett finally coming back, like that type of awareness for their storytelling is so great, just because there's plenty of shows and movies and things, they'll introduce a storyline and then never touch it again. And it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
I guess
really.
guess that was just a throwaway. I mean, you see that in plenty of movies, especially. Like, they'll introduce something and just never talk about it again, and then, a movie being a standalone thing, just never addressed. So I really think Mando did a really good job at that. Like, they just really tied in all their storylines really well, and they still stuck to their main storyline of getting Grogu to a Jedi. Like, sure, he wanted it to be Ahsoka, or a lot of us wanted it to be Ahsoka initially, but then we find out it's Luke, and he didn't necessarily mean it to be Luke, but that's who it turned out to be, and he got him to a Jedi, so we got that storyline wrapped up, and that was the main storyline. So I really think they did a good job with that, and then also a good job of introducing potential storylines for future seasons. You know, you have the whole Mandalore occupation or whatever's
Oh
going
yeah.
on Mandalore. That's obviously going to be the main storyline for season 3. But then also you have the underlying B plot, like awkward storyline between Bo-Katan and Din. Like, you know, who's getting this dark saber? So you have that, and then of course you have the overshadowing of Grand Admiral Thrawn, whether he's in this show or the Ahsoka show. You know, he's potentially coming at some point. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a C plot storyline. And then, you know, as you mentioned earlier, Chris, about we may not see Grogu very much, if at all, in season 3 of Mando. That could be the D plot storyline. Like, are we gonna get Grogu? Because I feel like it's just too big of a marketing thing to not have Grogu in a
Oh
show.
yeah. He'll come back
So
eventually.
so he'll come back at some point, and then that means when he comes back, we have to get Luke again, because how else is he getting back unless you have like a Padawan bring him or something? But I mean, that's 4 storylines right there. I just thought of right off the cuff, right off the bat. Like, there's so many storylines they closed for this season, but then so many storylines they turn around and reopen right back up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Milton, any thoughts on that?
I mean, I would say the continuity thing for me has been very much crisp throughout this whole series. Um, they like Ben mentioned, they did a good job at connecting storylines, ending them, but also giving us wanting more and
Mm-hmm.
having some, I wouldn't say unanswered questions, but more just like things that could be expanded upon. Like I said, you know, Grogu, him coming back next year or next season. Um, Luke's character, are we going to see him more often, or even sometimes again? The whole stuff, Boba Fett, the Mandalorian culture, the war, that type of thing. Overall, like I said, I thought this season did a really good job at continuity. You know, I
Mm-hmm.
think that's something that since Disney has bought Star Wars has been somewhat, I wouldn't say an issue, but it's been inconsistent at times.
Mm.
I think this show has done a good job at tying in um, things that have been very much old, but also very much new when it comes to their animation shows and their film and that type of thing. Overall, I thought that was a very good positive with the continuity. I think that, like what you brought up, Chris, was a significant positive due to the significance it brought to Star Wars and to this particular show.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do two more positives, one for Milton, one for Ben if you have anything else to say. And then we'll get into our negatives real quick and we'll give this season a score and we'll close it up. So Milton,
Okay.
one more positive for you if you got one for season 2.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, one more positive, and I'll keep this one pretty short. I mean, I would say the overall action in this series was awesome.
I
I
was
mean,
hoping
it
somebody would
was,
say that.
yeah, the
Yeah.
action was amazing. I mean, from and again, I'm a big lightsaber mark, so anytime a lightsaber comes out, I'm just losing my shit. Um, but the Ahsoka fight with the was it not the marshal, the magistrate, and
Yeah.
then Luke pretty much him wielding his saber and just wrecking those dark troopers was awesome. Like I just thought the overall action sequence was dope with the sabers. We got clearly these are Jedi that know how to fight,
Yeah.
and this is what I've been wanting. Sorry, Kylo.
Ooh.
Sorry, Ray. You can't
Ooh.
fight. You get wrecked by these two. I thought the overall like action in general when it comes to our normal characters with their pistols and everything
Yeah.
was pretty dope. A lot of hand to hand combat in this particular season. I was very impressed with. So overall, I thought the whoever the action stunt coordinator was for this particular season or series, kudos to him or her because the action was not garbage.
Yeah, and I'll piggyback off that and I'll talk about the overall scale of the action. Definitely increased, like you were saying before, Milton, about the Crate Dragon. That blew my mind.
Yeah.
How they are able to open up the season with this gigantic CG creature, and the CG did not even look crappy at all. Like, it looked better than probably most of the film CGI I've seen.
It looked better than Steppenwolf from Justice League.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's not that hard of a bar to get past, but just
Very true.
saying.
I
But
mean, okay, now Zack Snyder Justice League is gonna be different. That's gonna be on top of this game, but now the Joss Whedon Justice League, yeah, bad.
Yeah, so what about you, Ben? What do you have to say about the overall action and the scale?
I thought the action was done really well. Just, I mean, especially heck, the first episode of the season, like the scale, they did the cinematic shots for the crate dragon. I thought that was amazing. Um, and then just the action for the other characters, like I think they did such a good job. You know, it's so cliche and easy to say, but it's great. The Luke scene was amazing. Just the action, and the story that was with that action, like the suspense, really, like us knowing, man, like Mando and the crew basically got their butts kicked by one dark trooper, and Luke's just sitting here just mowing these guys down like it's nothing. So just that whole sequence was phenomenal, and I loved the Boba Fett action sequence. I thought that was great, just because we get to see him in action, like as him being a legendary character in Star Wars. So those moments, along with just all of them, really. I mean, one episode we haven't really talked too much about is the fourth episode with Carl Weathers,
Yeah.
directing. Like his action
Oh,
for
so
the
good.
episode, it was so good. I mean, he literally
Yeah.
talked about it in an interview earlier this year. Like he wanted his episode to feel kind of like an action movie type of episode, and that's exactly what it was. So the action in this season in particular was on point, and I just was really pleased by it.
Yeah, seeing a lot of the machinery was awesome. Seeing, like you just said, Carl Weathers' episode that he directed. They're on the Imperial Gav speeder thing, whatever you want to call it, going through the canyons. You got the TIE fighters. He's in the turret, like classic Star Wars style, in the turret firing. Then you got Din with the Razor Crest at the end there, doing crazy loops and killing TIE fighters. Then you have, like I said, episode 7 with Rick Famuyiwa doing the whole speed trope where they can't go too fast or too slow with the truck, and you got Mando in the tank armor, and he's fighting these guys hand to hand. Very good stunt coordination. I love how they get a lot of these females that are well versed in their craft of beating people the hell up. I mean, they have Casca Reeves, played by the one wrestler. What is her name?
Sasha Banks.
Sasha Banks, who's very good. She even does one of her moves against Boba Fett in the last episode. Then you have obviously Gina Carano doing some awesome work, like something out of Star Wars Rebels with the character Zeb, where she slams these two pilots around in the cockpit and knocks them out, and uses her gun to just bash people's heads in. Like, just amazing combat that just really adds physical layers to making you feel like the impact from these blows. So we are going to get into the negatives. Do you guys have any negatives for this season that you want to address? Anything you didn't like?
Oh, I
Hmm.
think this isn't a. Oh man, I'm trying to phrase it this way. This is a negative when it comes to, I think, the acknowledgement by fans and critics. I think the music and the soundtrack to this particular show has not gotten enough credit. That's my one negative about this particular season, because the music has been so good. And this is a positive too, I guess, but I have not seen enough acknowledgement about Ludwig Göransson's composition and being a great composer of this particular franchise and of this brand. Because we're used to John Williams doing Star Wars. I think we all would have been happy if John Williams did The Mandalorian. But I think with him doing this series, not getting enough praise, not getting enough love, because the music is so badass when it makes a show. Just the first time you see Mandalorian in this particular series, and that theme pops on, it's like, wow. And I thought he upped his game in season 2 with the soundtrack. So I think that's my only negative about just how the critics and even the fandom, 'cause I don't see enough of this. People aren't talking about the music like they should be.
Yeah.
Everyone talks about John Williams soundtracks. I'm honestly probably going to get
Yeah.
these soundtracks because they're that good.
Yeah. Yeah. What I like about Ludwig Göransson is that whole first season, he did not play into any of the Star Wars themes. It was all his own original music. And 99% of that is the same with season 2. Although, if you have a very keen ear, at certain moments, he'll play like 2 or 3 bars or whatever of a very quick theme. Like when they were doing the teaching with Ahsoka and Yoda, or baby Grogu, you hear Yoda's theme really, really faintly sprinkled in there. When you see Luke Skywalker talking to Din, you hear the Force theme a little bit in there. When you act, and then I like how he plays around with his own music in different instruments and styles. Like, I don't know if you guys caught this, but at the end of episode 5, Dave Filoni's episode, as the people are rejoicing in the village, like, you hear the Mandalorian theme, but played on, like, the instruments that these people would probably have in their village. And it was like a more upbeat version. And then in that same episode, like five minutes later, you hear the Ahsoka theme like I've never heard it before. And it damn near brought me to tears, man, because it was so powerful. And you see Ahsoka just like watching the ship leave with her swelling theme music in the background. I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy's a genius.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love anything he's done, whether it's Creed, Fruitvale Station, the Black Panther movie, which I think he's going to do Black Panther 2. He can do no wrong. And I love how, like, he's now part of the Disney family. And, like, it's amazing. So he needs more love. Like, and I know he has the respect in Hollywood, but it's like, God, dude, as a Star Wars composer, him and John Williams and even Michael Giacchino when they did Rogue One, so good. So good. Like, I mean, he's really good. Like, he needs more love and hopefully gets more opportunity, not just with The Mandalorian, but with, like, other Star Wars projects. Because I think he's that good to make different types of sounds and different types of music for different properties of Star Wars.
Yeah, Ben, do you have any negatives for any of the moments or whatever in season 2?
I would have to say, I mean, obviously we could nitpick little things here and there.
Sure.
I mean, you could nitpick little things obviously throughout the season. Like, I didn't like the whole face scan thing in the Mayfeld episode, just because I thought that was kind of like a little, I don't know, like why can't, how can just someone off the street walk into an Imperial base and scan and get into all of the, for example, could any of us go and walk into the Pentagon right now and just go access all the secret files about the US? I highly doubt that. So I don't know. I just thought that was a little iffy, but again, that's nitpicky. I would have to say my biggest negative for this season, last season of Mando, and Star Wars really as a whole, like this season, there wasn't really many negatives to point out. As I said, my nitpick was like a face scan computer, like, okay, whatever. But I think my biggest negative for this season is a lot of the Discord and discourse we get online between fans, like discussing, because so many fans draw battle lines when it comes to properties they love, like Star Wars or Marvel or DC or whatever. And here's me, I'm looking at it from a lens. I mean, Chris, you were just talking about it with somebody on Twitter, like they were going back and forth with you. Like, I think a lot of people forget we're all, even if we critique or love certain things, we're all still fans of this thing. Like, we all love this thing. So, like, I think a lot of fans get into a mindset of like almost like ownership over it, where they, they can complain about one thing or the other. Like I saw some discussion online after the season finale last week about like, was the Luke appearance too much because of what they did with him in the sequel trilogy? Was it too much? Were they basically slapping that, his character in the sequel trilogy in the face by making him so badass in this season finale? And I'm just like, but, and then, I saw people discuss like, oh, when it comes to that, like, do you have, so, like I saw a discussion along the lines of like, okay, so if you like Mando season finale, that means you hate The Last Jedi. And if you like The Last Jedi, you're supposed to hate Mando season finale. And I'm like, why is there even that discussion? Why can't we just like love Star Wars,
Yep.
Like why if I like one thing way over here, do I have to hate one thing way over
That's
here?
ridiculous.
like, that's my biggest critique on this season of Mando is even at all of the great things I said earlier, about how well Mando has really brought the fan base back together. They've really brought them and unified them a lot more. But there's still subtle discussions, subtle negativity out there of, of basically people going along those lines, like drawing those type of lines. And I'm like, why can't we just love certain parts of it? And if we don't love certain parts of it, okay, that's cool. That's your
Yeah.
opinion. Like, have at it. Like, and that's my thing when it comes to that. It's like, I love certain parts of Star Wars that you guys might not like, and you guys love certain parts of Star Wars and I might not like it. And you know what? The thing about that is that's okay. Like, that's totally okay. And I think people forget that when it comes to like opinions. I just think people forget you're allowed to have an opinion, and it's okay if it's different. Like, all film's subjective. Like, so I just think I would have to say that's the biggest negative is we are still, because I mean, I'm sure you guys remember it with being such big Star Wars fans before The Force Awakens came out. And even after The Force Awakens and after Rogue One, Star Wars was in a totally different place. Everybody was, so glowing about Star Wars online. And then after Episode 8, everything changed. And I feel like that was the flashpoint. And I just really think Star Wars is still, even with Mando, I think they're still recovering from it. Like, we're getting there. We're getting there. Don't get me wrong. But we're still not at that pre-Force Awakens just yet, in my opinion. Once we get Mando Season 3 and Boba and Ahsoka and Rangers and Rogue Squadron, I think once we get more of these things under our belt, I think the fandom is going to be in a much healthier place, because you're getting maybe some of the critical points people had about the sequel trilogy, or the things they loved, or whatever. You're getting throughout all these shows, you're getting everything that people want. You're getting diversity. You're getting badass women. You're getting great storytelling. You're getting nostalgia. I mean, you're getting Luke being a badass, like Boba Fett coming back as a legend. Like, you're getting all of these amazing moments. And I think that's one of the best parts about this show, is just that you're getting all these potential things where people from all, walks of life can really pick something up from that. But even with all that being said, I think we're still at a point where the fandom still needs to get a little healthier, but we're getting there.
Yeah, I think that's well said. As far as, hey, no matter what we do, we can't change some of the toxicity that's going on. All we can do is, like you said, if you don't like something, that's cool. Try to reinforce that. Like what you like about Star Wars, and if you don't like it, try not to ruin anybody else's day by just like slamming it in their face about how they're inferior, pretty much because they like something that you think is not good. That's subjective. Everybody gets it their own way. It's just how you react to it, how you deal with it. As far as for season 2, I think one of the weaker points, I hate to say it, is Moff Gideon. I felt like, and it's not just because of anything he did, it's for lack of what he did. I don't think we've seen enough for him to be the big bad villain. What we've seen of him has been amazing, which was in that final episode. But before that, we were just getting very like non-character development dialogue and action sequences, right? Like, we at the end of episodes, it'd be like, Moff Gideon, we put a tracker on them, and he would just say like some informative line and walk away. I was hoping that we would get some kind of backstory about him, but we really didn't learn anything when you think about it of this character, other than that maybe he has other plans up his sleeve. He says to Din, assume that I know everything. That's probably one of the most telling things you could see about this guy, that the fact that he had a grin on his face even though he was in shackles, like being led, like he had an alternate plan in place. But I would have just liked to see a little more time maybe dedicated to his character.
No, I agree with that. I think hopefully season 3 would dive into that more. Again, I'm hopeful, and I'm hoping that Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau would acknowledge, hey, this character is universally loved. I think we need to give him more airtime or more backstory or just expand his character more because he's one of those villains where I think we all connected with.
Yeah.
I mean, like we all connected with Vader and the Emperor and Maul and all those guys, but Gideon's one of those ones where I think the fandom would love to know, okay, who's he working for? What's he all about? He was around during the old Empire days. So what's going on with this character? How did he become so prominent? And maybe we might see some of that in season 3.
Oh yeah, I definitely think I would have to agree with you there, Chris. Like that probably is one of my other than what I spoke about earlier. I think the usage of Gideon is still, even from season 1, is still the weakest part of the show, because they're trying to imply Gideon is basically Vader or whatever, but he still hasn't had that moment yet. That's why I was thinking maybe in the season finale, maybe he's going to kill Bo-Katan with the Darksaber, and that would be poetic or whatever. But nope, he doesn't. He just gets bested by Mando. So it's why is his character so menacing? Is he really just an Imperial officer who thinks highly of himself, and we're going to just get Grand Admiral Thrawn to step in next season and be like, nope, that guy was nothing. So that's what makes me wonder. I think there's also maybe potential this coming season. We're going to get a point in the show where what if it comes out, what if Gideon basically threw the fight against Mando? What if he did that? What if he threw the fight against Mando? And what if we get to a point where Bo-Katan and Gideon have to fight? And what if Gideon actually kills her then? And then basically is like, no, I was basically throwing that fight against Din. Because I feel like he's got to be more, he's got to, I mean, that could be me wishing it just because I love Giancarlo Esposito's portrayal of Gideon. But he's got to be more badass than what he is. He's just got to be. So that's why I think there's a chance maybe we could get that. What if Bo-Katan next season is like, hey, to make it legitimate, I need to defeat Gideon. And what if Gideon beats her in front of all the Mandalorian people or whatever, and then he's like, hey, I'm the ruler of Mandalore, So, I think there's a potential maybe for something along those lines, just because we have to get his character established as this big villain, or it's a wasted character, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, Master2552 in the chat is chiming in, and he's saying, I think that Bo-Katan is a POS. It would be nice to see her death. Say it like you mean it, man. But yeah, that's a good point about what exactly they're up to, We're going to get into our final thoughts, and we're finally going to score this season out of 10. So, what the heck? I'll go first for once. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say that season 2 was a big step up from season 1 for me. And that's saying something, because I really enjoyed season 1. I gave it a 9 out of 10. I thought that, hey, there could be room for improvement, maybe more intricate storylines, maybe more characters, maybe more risk, maybe more character development. And all those things happened in season 2. The characters, the expansion of the world, the action set pieces that were dialed up to 11, just the feelings that were portrayed, the shocking reveals. I wish all these leaks hadn't happened, because man, I would have really been going crazy. But I was still going crazy nonetheless when these people popped up and it was actually for real. But continuing the mythology of Star Wars and getting everybody excited about Star Wars, like Ben was saying, for the first time in a long time, has been something special, something that was on par with the movies every week. I'll say right here, I was getting the feelings of watching a movie at home almost every Friday, depending on what was happening in the episodes, and being able to talk with you guys. Fantastic experience. I'm giving it a 9.5 out of 10. I think there could be room for the show to be even better, but it's going to be really, really hard to top season 2. So I'm going to go right over to Milton for his final thoughts and score.
Yes. So overall, I thought this season was a step up. I think, like we mentioned with the premiere episode, it set the tone of what we're going to get. As for the character development, I love the character development. It was nice. It was kind of like we came back with old friends.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing Den and Kara and Grief and clearly Baby Yoda and Mayfield and all those guys. Seeing that we were back with old friends and how they really developed these characters and told a clear and concise story. Action was dope. Loved the music. I felt the scale and cinematography. You can tell that the technology has advanced a lot
Mm-hmm.
from 1 year till now and how they told their stories. I thought it was seamless. Again, I thought this was a great season. I have to give it the same score, 9.5 out of 10.
Ooh, all right.
Yeah, mainly like you said, because I know episode 2, I wouldn't say it's a letdown, but it was probably the weakest. The Moff Gideon point's a great example. Like I said, I think we can expand more upon that character, and also too, I think when it comes to that season, that episode 2 in particular, I think they may learn their lesson from that particular episode and give us a little bit more meat, uh, in particular with the story. So it's a nitpicky thing to say, but yeah, 9.5 out of 10. Again, I think season 3 is going to be even better.
Oh man, it's gonna be hard to top. What do you think about this season, Ben?
I thought it was great. As you mentioned, Chris, season 1, I mean, heck, I gave season 1 a 9 as well. But season 2, it really stepped it up a whole nother level, from the storytelling, from the action, from the cinematography, from them as creators, the entire like Lucasfilm creative staff, really sticking though to their mission of, these are one-off episodes, like sticking to the Western style format, sticking to their story. I was really impressed by it. The way they handled certain characters, like legendary characters like Bo-Katan, Ahsoka, Boba, Luke, like they didn't bring them in and overshadow the entire show. So that was a big applause on their part. Like I thought that was excellent. I really love the way they handled those characters in a way they showed why they're legends. Like, Ahsoka, they show her, they show why she's this great Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
Boba, they bring Boba in, and like Robert Rodriguez said, he's a barbarian, and that is literally what he was in that episode. He was brutal as could be. Luke, he's the greatest Jedi in the galaxy, and he comes in and he's only in that one episode, but his one moment in it, it's just so impactful, and it really brings volumes to his character to show where he was from Return of the Jedi to now. So like solidifying the legends as legends is such a big point. I can really applaud them on. And then of course, just the overall character arc of Din, seeing Din going from last year, becoming a little more and more fond of Grogu up until now, where he's basically his parent. Like, that's amazing. Like seeing that character arc of that character really be solidified. I mean, they did it in the first episode when they went to the planet where it was the Fight Club, basically. I mean, he brings Grogu into a little fight club, and he's like, wherever he goes, I go. Like, so like that's solidifying that parent child relationship, and I really like that. And I think, I mean to further that point even more, think about it this way: him basically pushing Grogu off. This is Grogu going to college, basically. Like he's going to college. Like he's heading off to college with Luke to go train, and he'll be back at some point because what do kids do when they go to college? They don't, they still come home to see their family. So I'm sure Grogu will be coming home to see his family very, very soon. And with all that being said, I would have to give this season a 9.5 out of 10.
All right, so 9.5s across the board for The Mandalorian. Most of the episodes, I think we gave like an 8 out of 10 or higher. So, man, oh man. I mean, this is probably not the video for you if you're trying to watch this video to get an understanding of what to watch, because we just spoiled everything. So if you have stuck to the end of this over 2-hour conversation, grats, because you made it, but still watch it anyway, because it's an amazing show, and that's just, we can't say enough good things about it. And I can't say enough good things about the journey that we've had as a collective group for the first time, having you guys on here every week. This was something new for me, kind of experimental with, especially I think doing this live has been an experience for me, trying to use OBS, trying to, get things going on the fly, audio and all that fun stuff, dealing with the live chat, and just having, especially the live chat, to bounce off you guys. I see a lot of you guys coming back every single week, and you guys say you're excited to come back for every week. So I can't tell you how much, as a content creator, that really means to me, to be able to really just have that conversation going constantly. And what I will say is we're going to continue our Star Wars conversations between Milton and Ben and myself, starting right into next week. You guys will be able to join us for our breakdown of the Bad Batch trailer, the new animated series coming out next year. Or, yeah, in just really a couple days, it's going to be next year already, which is crazy. It's going to be 2021. Good thing, sayonara 2020. But, yeah, so you guys can look forward to more content from us coming out in some degree. I'm not sure how often or how frequently, but probably more frequently than not, and we'll let you guys know when it's going to come out. Usually probably Sundays work the best for us, so around the same time slot you can expect us to have content coming out. So do you guys have anything you want to plug or say before we turn it off for tonight?
I just want to say, man, I appreciate you having us on every week. It's been nothing but a blast in the journey, and I think we've really connected well and grown a lot doing these reviews and these breakdowns. So I appreciate the love, Chris. I appreciate you having us on the show, man. So thank you so much.
Hell yeah, man. The sentiments have to be repeated by myself as well. So I mean, it's been a lot of fun. Luckily, we're all in the same time zone on the East Coast. So that makes things
Right.
a little bit easier for us. But yeah, and you can follow Milton on Twitter at MiltonWeber7 and his Instagram, which is, I forget.
I
Man.
believe it's Milton Kingslayer,
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah, but again, I don't remember my own Instagram. It's crazy, but it's Milton Weber. You'll find me. It's there.
And thanks so much for being part of this video series there, Ben.
Yep. I had a blast with it, and I can't wait for our future talks. Again, I can echo Milton's sentiments, and thanks for having us on, Chris. It's a lot of fun, and that's one of the big joys of Star Wars, really. Like we talked about over these past couple months now, which is crazy to think about, is just how Star Wars connects people of all ages, genders, races, whatever. Like Star Wars connects people across so many different spectrums, and now you guys are some of my good friends. Like I could just shoot you guys a message and be like, hey, I need to talk about something. And, I'm sure either you would be like, hey, what's up? So I really think that's one of the great parts about Star Wars. It just really connects people and it forms great pieces of content like this. I mean, now we have, like you said, you have people in the chat talking, like, it's forming a community and it's furthering the community really. And it's one of the strongest parts about Star Wars. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun here in the future for our future live streams and other pieces of content to see how things further, expand further. And
heck yeah.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Yeah, heck yeah. I mean, what it simply is a conversation I would have with my friends and just turning on a camera and going live. And I think we've done that here. I think what we've done is try to make that casual conversation where, hey, we can go off on tangents and we can have fun talking about this or that. And next thing you know, like this video turns out to be 2.5 hours long. And here I'm thinking, oh yeah, this will be a good hour. No, I like the unpredictability and it's fun to just go off kilter sometimes, but we're very respective of all points of view. And we try to have, a conversation that's not going to tilt one direction or the other, and everybody has a say. But yeah, so for my channel, I've been producing a lot of content recently. I have put up together my top 10 games of 2020, so you can go ahead and see that. I have all the reviews of the upcoming High Republic novels. They are coming out next week, actually. At least 2 of them are. That is The Test of Courage and the Light of the Jedi, which kick off the High Republic. So definitely pick those up. Can't recommend those enough. Starting off a brand new era of Star Wars, starting with the publishing, and then later on down the road, we're going to get the Acolyte, which is also going to be set during that. So there you go. There's even more incentive for you guys to start reading or listening to Star Wars books. With that being said, obviously go ahead and subscribe to the channel. As we keep saying, we'll be back not every Sunday, but we're definitely going to be back next Sunday. So mark it on your calendars. We will be talking about the Bad Batch, like I said before. But that is going to do it for me, for Milton, for Ben. Thank you, everybody, for watching. May the Force be with you always, and this is the way. Have a good night, everybody. All right.